Turn off your camera if you wouldn't mind until we start committee of the whole. Just for city reps, we'll be inviting you in once we start committee of the whole. Thanks. I'd ask all rise for the entrance of the warden into the chambers.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to 2025. Going to have to get used to saying that. So if you would please join me in O Canada, followed by a moment of quiet contemplation. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. We'll get set up. Okay, I'll look to my clerk for roll call.
Thank you, Warden. We do have all members of council in attendance, attending in person in the council chamber and remotely, and you have your quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll look for an approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fryer that the agenda for the January 14th meeting of County Council be approved.
Any questions arising from the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Trying to take my time to look at the screen as well as folks that are here. This is our first ever hybrid meeting, so we'll see how it goes. Is there disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? I'm not seeing any in-house. Not seeing any online. If you find yourself in that situation later, please declare it at that time. Presentations and deputations, we have none, but we do have the consent agenda. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. Through you, Warden Clark. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross, that the Council communications and proclamations November the 26th, 2024 to January the 13th, 2025 have been given due consideration be received.
Any questions arising from the proclamations? Not seeing any. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Jonathan reminded me I have to ask for opposed now because I don't have everybody in the house in case a hand didn't go up. Okay, 1 second. So the adoption of the council minutes, Deputy Warden Cogman, please.
Good morning, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McClellan, that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted. Joint County Council meeting and Committee of the Whole minutes, November 26, 2024, and Joint Council and Committee of the Whole confidential minutes of November 26, 2024.
Thank you. Is there any questions arising from the minutes? Not seeing any. All in favor? And opposed, if any? Seeing none. Thank you. Presentations and consideration of the Committee of the Whole report. There was none, as the last meeting was a hybrid. Special committee reports, we have none in front of us. Presentations and considerations of Service Corporation. Yes, we have the Lake Simcoe Regional. So moved by Councillor Norcross. Oh, I don't see him. Are you here? Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would you like me to move the motion then, the resolution?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the minutes of the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport Board and confidential Lake Simcoe Regional Airport Board meeting held November 22nd, 2024 be received.
If I could have a seconder, Deputy Warden. So on that, any questions arising from those minutes? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. Opposed, of any? Not seeing any. Presentation and consideration of county officers report, none. Motions of which notice has been previously given. And yes, we do have one today, as if you're all familiar with last year. So what the motion is that's on the floor now, and it will require a 2/3 majority, it's to reconsider. Last year, we had to have a 2/3 majority just to allow the motion to be read. Now what the motion is asking for is that we reconsider the composition of 33. So what I would do is I'll get Jonathan to read the motion in a second, and then I'll ask the mover and the seconder to speak on it. And all comments need to be on whether or not we reconsider it, not on the actual composition. That's not for debate now. It's whether or not we take another look. Jonathan?
Thanks, Warden. So this notice of motion to reconsider reads as follows, that Resolution 2024-212 from the October 8th, 2024 meeting of County Council, being a resolution containing direction to support option 1 to pursue a full-time warden 33-member council from item GOV 2024-210 dated August 27th, 2024 regarding governance workshop follow-up, head of council and council composition options be reconsidered. So a vote in support of this reconsideration, I just want to clarify, is to essentially open up this question again and sort of teleport back to October 8th. So if there's any questions from you, Warden, or any members of council on procedure, I'm happy to answer them.
I'll look for procedure questions prior to going to the mover and second. Anybody not understanding the procedure that we're about to follow? I am not seeing any. So it's moved by Councillor Leduc. Go ahead, James, if you have some comments.
Thank you, Warden. And I just wanted to comment that I thank everyone for allowing us to look at this as a reconsideration. I wasn't available on that October meeting, and I've just, in regard to this, because of changing circumstances with the financial aspect of council composition, I just wanted to see if we would have a reconsideration discussion on the council composition from 33 to 16. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll turn to the seconder now. Councillor Fryer, any follow-up comments?
And thank you, Warden. And similar, I supported Councillor Duke bringing it forward, and I appreciate this House for supporting and letting us have a reconsideration discussion today. The past discussion, in my opinion, was a little bit out of sync. The intention of the Governance Committee had been to have the matter of composition dealt with at the same time as when we were talking about the compensation. And but I understand the reasons why it was broken out. And I think part of the reasoning was that we could always revisit if we needed to. And that's the opportunity that we're trying to put forward today. And at a minimum, even though the outcome might be the same, it gives me a better ability in dealing with my fellow municipal councillors who have raised some concerns and some questions with me.
And I'd like to be able to, when we do have to go for a triple majority consideration, be able to say these steps were taken. So again, I appreciate, just briefly wanted to say thank you to the House for letting us at least talk about a reconsideration today.
Okay, am I seeing any other comments? None from the floor? Oh, Councillor Dole.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also want to speak in favor of reconsideration. I think it's incumbent upon us either to reconsider the number of councillors or the compensation, but to almost triple our salary and raise the number of councillors, I think is irresponsible. And so I would also ask for recorded vote for the reconsideration, please.
Thank you. Do I have any comments from online? Okay, I'm not seeing any, and I'm not seeing any hands in the House. So on the recorded vote for the reconsideration, I will now call the vote.
Okay, thank you very much, Warden. So once again, this is a reconsideration motion. So voting in favor of this is to open up the decision on a 33-member council from October 8th. And voting against is to sort of have the decision on 33 stand. And we had a request for a recorded vote called by Councillor Dolan. And so we'll start with Councillor Dolan and move in alphabetical order. And I just ask when I call your name, whether in the chambers or remotely, you indicate verbally yes or no. So starting with Councillor Dolan.
Yes.
Councillor Evans.
In favor.
Councillor Fowler.
In favor.
Councillor Fryer.
Yes.
Councillor Gordon.
Yes.
Councillor Greenlaw.
In favor.
Councillor Hamlin. Councillor Hamlin.
Yeah, in favor. Sorry, I was unmuted.
Thank you. Councillor Laux.
Yes.
Councillor LaRose.
No.
Councillor Lavoie.
No.
Councillor Leduc.
In favor?
Councillor McDonald.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Measures.
Opposed.
Councillor Miskimins.
Yes.
Councillor Norcross.
Yes.
Councillor Norris.
Yes.
Councillor Prost.
Yes.
Councillor Rawson.
No.
Councillor Sandu.
Yes.
Councillor Brian Smith.
No.
Councillor Michael Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Snell.
In favor.
Councillor Van Staveren.
In favor.
Councillor Walker.
In favor.
Councillor Anderson.
No.
Councillor Bell.
No.
Councillor Burkett.
No.
Councillor Cabral.
Yes.
Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Yes.
Councillor Cox.
No.
And finally, Your Worship.
In favor.
So just please give us one moment to tabulate, and I'll just remind Council this requires a 2/3 majority. Your Worship, I have a vote of 23 in favor and 9 against, which is a weighted vote of 115 to 30, and that does carry on a 2/3 majority.
Thank you. So now we'll explain the process further. That puts the original motion back on the floor, which is a composition of 33, the motion that was passed originally. Now there's two ways we can proceed. We can either have an amendment to that motion, or what I'll do now, and I was hoping to call these councillors before the meeting to explain the process. The mover and the seconder for the original motion is Councillor Fowler and Councillor Prost. If they withdraw their motion, then we can have an open debate and there's no motion on the floor. And then based on how the debate looks, we can put a new motion. So I would look to who was the mover was actually, I just got to find it here. Councillor Fowler, will you withdraw, or do you want to see the motion stand and we'd look for an amendment?
I'm willing to withdraw, Your Worship.
Councillor Prost?
Withdraw.
Okay, so now there's nothing on the floor. So now we can have a debate, but then I will need a motion entered by the time of our debate. So I'll look for comments now if we want to have a discussion on it. That's what the 2/3 did. It opened it up for discussion again. So who would like to go first? Councillor Leduc.
Thank you, Warden. And I want to thank everybody for allowing us to put this back on the floor to have a conversation. And I understood what Councillor Fowler had talked about, where I appreciate that he seconded the motion to reconsider this. When we first looked at this, we hadn't done the financial, the increase in wages for county council. And I've always been a proponent of increasing the wages. I think it's fair to get the wage increases at county, but at the same time, I've always been in favor of reducing the county council size. So I fully support option one. I think option one works for us. I'm in full support of having a full-time warden. I think it makes sense. Reducing the council size to 16 at the county level also gives us an opportunity to reduce our local councils. So in reducing 16 members at this level can also reduce 16 members at the lower level. So to me, it's a great savings for the residents. They still get the same level of governance, no matter what. If it's one or two people at the table, it's still the same governance structure. So to me, I fully support the reduction from the 32 to 17, which is, I think, option two, which is actually speaks to option two. So that's where I sit, and I hope that the rest of county council can see that and recognize the fact that we would still get the same governance if we went down to 16. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you for clarifying that is the option two is what you're looking at. Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Leduc, could you clarify? I don't understand your comment where reducing it here is going to reduce the size of the lower level municipality councils, please.
I would look for clarification on that, Councillor Leduc.
Yes, thank you, Warden, and thank you for the question. So what I see it as that you have a mayor and a deputy mayor sitting at this upper level. So when you go to 2026 election, you would actually be able to remove the deputy mayor at the lower level. So it's like getting two. You get one up at the county level and one at the lower municipal level. So you would remove. You don't need a deputy mayor then, because the only reason why you have a deputy mayor in these in our municipalities is because we have the two being set up at the county. So it's up to every municipality. You can do what you want. I'm just saying that it gives an option to reduce a deputy mayor need at the lower level if they'd like.
Again, stress that is an option.
Supplementary? Thank you for the clarity, because I don't think it's our position to tell the lower municipalities how to structure their own council, whether or not there's a deputy mayor. But you said it's an option, and I'll accept that and take that on your word of or at that for now. Thank you.
Councillor Dolan, I think I saw your hand up.
Thank you. I just also wanted to stress that that's a decision by the lower tier, and each municipality makes those decisions for themselves and can choose still to have a deputy mayor should they wish.
Okay, I see Councillor McDonald online. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just also would like to say the same things basically as Councillor Greenlaw and Councillor Dolan, but also to remark that the only reason that a deputy is to come to the county council is not at all what we have a deputy mayor for. So I just wanted that to be noted. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any questions or comments from the House? Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden. And I initially planned on saying the same statement. I think there's other aspects of the deputy mayor position that are very important at the municipal level. But I think the more important thing is that my understanding is that if we were successful in deciding to lower the number of representatives to 16, we'd want to stress to the municipal minister of municipal affairs that we'd want the municipalities to be able to decide, because every circumstance is going to be different for each of the, even dependent on who gets elected in a particular year. So I think it's really important, and that was my understanding. And further to that, the other understanding I had, because there are some open questions in going down to 17 on how it's going to operate, but I have every faith in the governance committee to work those details out and let the House know how they could proceed. And it happens today that we're meeting for the first time in hybrid situation.
So that's going to make the situation so much easier with the lower number, because there's the ability to participate from anywhere as the representative for when you're down to one instead of two. But I still think we need a strong alternate program. I think that the alternates can really serve a purpose in making this function well going forward. And again, I'm relying on the governance committee to work those details out. The motion itself simply reads that we would go down to 17. And those particular things like that would need to be worked out, we'd be looking to the governance committee to do that. So that's my understanding going forward, and why I support option 2. And at any point in time where it's appropriate, I'd like to put 2024-211 back on the floor, which was the option 2 vote that we had earlier on October 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm still going to look for comments at this time. And yes, the alternates program would still remain, and that's something governance did want to have a look at. How we structured moving forward, how do you make sure alternates are properly compensated? How do you keep them up to speed on what's going on? All a debate that we will have. This was structured because that wouldn't require the 2/3 or the triple majority, where everything that's in front of us here requires that triple majority, and we tried to keep it streamlined to that, so that when we go to the people, we're not confusing everybody else with issues that don't require the triple majority. So do I have any other comments from councillors? Yes, I do. I have Councillor Bell, followed by Councillor LaRose.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think I've listened to everybody so far, and I'm very open to any changes. My concern is the only change I've heard is that we're just decreasing. We're decreasing, and it sounds like it's money savings as opposed to the impact it'll have on our residents and on this house and the staff. I think we have great discussions. There's many times when my other counterpart does not agree with me, and we vote differently in here. And I think it's because we hear different stories from throughout our municipalities, and we have to take that for what it is. I think that we have a better coverage of our municipalities with 2 people here. I think we cover our committees better with more people. I think there's a lot of work to be done here, and I'm okay with that, but I haven't heard a pro as far as dropping to 16 at this point, other than saving money.
Thank you. Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine was on basically the same line as Councillor Bell. I just don't understand, or how could someone clarify how having less people would be better? If it's just for financial, then it makes me wonder. When I look at the 32 people in this room, everybody has a separate opinion. If you had a strong person at your local municipality, or if they were to set it up where they sent an alternate all the time, you're not getting the exact way that people would look at something. So I'm very much in favor of keeping 32 people, just because the brain power in the room is doubled. So if we're only looking at it for financial, but if someone could clarify if there's another reason, that would be great.
I'm seeing, I've got one. Councillor Norris, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, I'll wait in case somebody does have clarification for Councillor LaRose's comment.
I think I have 2. Deputy Warden, and then...
Thank you, Your Worship. The Governance Committee has spoken about this in depth, and as we know, over many years on this floor. I think that the pressure that we get stems, for myself anyway, from residents taking a look at the size of the council. Well, yes, there is, when more people are in a discussion, there's more debate. I think we can speak to efficiencies. I think that this job can be done very well by 16 people plus a full-time warden. I think that taking a look at all of our committees and everything that will fall out from that can be done by this house. I know myself, residents have often questioned why it takes 32 people to do this. And my simple answer to them is I disagree. I think that 17 people would be an effective and efficient council, and it would have half the cost to our taxpayers.
Councillor Dolan, and then I have a few folks online.
Thank you. I'd also attempt to answer that, and I agree with the deputy warden that we're seen as bloated by our residents. I think that I've heard comments in this house before that it actually would cause more work for staff. I would argue it would cause less work for staff. There's less support people required, or less support required for less counselors. And also, I believe that as the largest house, the largest government, the most seats in Ontario, that won't go unnoticed by the provincial government, and that if we don't do it, it will get done for us. And I would rather be a master of my own fate.
Thank you. Online, I have Councillor Rawson, then Prost, and then Sandu. So Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Worship. I find it interesting, this topic about, it comes down to value and value for money and how we represent our local constituents. And some of it I hear is a bit of fear mongering about, pleasing the provincial government and the Minister of Municipal Affairs. If I look at the last several provincial and federal elections, we always have increased number of federal members to parliament or provincial members to provincial parliament. And it's based on representation. And we're here to represent our constituents. And that's what that's about. We talk often about how we're growing and how fast we're growing. And this model has worked for a long time, representing our lower tiers and our councils and our communities at large. I don't understand how shrinking us in half is going to deliver more value for our growing population, when again, the people that we think are telling us to do this are growing themselves. I would welcome them to come to us and say, you need to shrink, and they can provide a provincial statute to do that. But we're doing a good job, and I think we should celebrate that. We are here to represent our local people, and that's great. Councillor Duke talked about shrinking our lower tier councils. And it came up that the opportunity could be that we could do that with our deputy mayor. But would all of us consider cutting our local councils in half? Because that's what we're doing here. We're not talking about one member. We're talking about cut in half. So it's just a thought-provoking question.
Thank you. Councillor Prost.
Thank you. Councillor Rawson really just said everything I was going to say. I'm actually still struggling with, and I voted for the amount of the raise for councillors. I feel at this point that I might have voted the wrong way. I think it was a huge raise, too fast. If we hadn't had a raise in 20 years, that's on us. It should have been, small increments along the way. I do agree with keeping council this size. I think it's more beneficial. We're such a wide spread community when we come together, right? We all bring something different. So I still support keeping council this size. If given the opportunity, I would not support the increase. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a bunch of names online here. I've got Councillor Sandu now, and then I've got the rest of you written down.
Thank you, Warden. First, I want to thank you for clarifying about the alternate position. That is so important to keep. If a member is not there, then it allows the municipality to send someone to represent them. Every time where we can, whether it's at the upper tier or lower tier, where we can reduce the number of people and still get the same job done or more, I would support it. And this would be a decent start, but in my mind, it's right now it's optics of having a 32-member council to 16. It's going to look good. It's not, when you look at the county budget, the savings is not that big of an impact, but still, it is less people making decisions. I would support it, but I still feel that we have to look at the how we vote, the weighted formula versus electors with the population and all that stuff. But that would come in steps. I voted against the increase because I didn't think that was a fair increase, and I still stand by my condition. I do not agree with Councillor Duke's comment about deputy mayors just being solely to represent up the county council. There's a role, and each municipality, how they run their council is up to them. It's not up to us as county councilors to tell them to reduce to whatever size they want to do. we might like to do that in Bradford, West Columbia. That's our decision, and so it should be for every municipality. I do agree that we should reduce the size. What lower level municipalities do with their councils, that's their business, none of our business. So I support this motion of reduction. I think it's a good start, but there's more work that needs to be done at the county level with fair representation. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I have Councillor Locke, Smith, and McDonald. So Councillor Locke, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. Just going to reiterate what I spoke about in our previous meetings. And also, I voted no against the raise, against 17, against 33, against all of them, because I don't think it's properly been planned. Dropping down to 16, yes, it sounds like a great idea. I printed this off the other day. You still got 68 positions in committees to fill. I haven't seen any sort of indication on how that's going to be dealt with. And I also truly believe, unfortunately, if you're going to drop down to 16 plus a full-time warden, which I don't mind the full-time warden aspect of it, but if you're dropping down to 16 and it's just mayors from each township, I believe you're going to overload those mayors with work that may take away from their own individual townships. You're cutting the workload in half, you're cutting the workforce in half, but the workload is the same. So, and not that I care for a hill of beans whether a deputy mayor position is there or not. I do believe if you were going to go to a 17-member council, that the 16 council members sitting on county should either be council members from the townships or elected at large or something like that, some sort of a plan. But I don't see any sort of a plan on that. You're just going to drop down to 17 people, full-time warden, and you're going to load everything onto every mayor from every township. And I believe that is going to be an extremely difficult hill to climb. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy New Year, everybody. I was quite surprised to see that this actually came back for us to talk about, because we had some very good conversation about this in this house. And I'm somewhat surprised when I hear that we think this is important because of optics. We think this is important because there's a small savings, and I'd be interested to see what that savings is when it comes to dollars and cents. It's probably less than 0.1% or something like that on the total budget. And that we're doing this because this is what our constituents are telling us. Well, we have 25,000 plus people in Wasaga Beach, and I can tell you that in all time I have sat in this house, I've never had a single constituent come to me and speak to me about county council, about the wage, or about the composition of county council. If you're hearing that from some people in your community, I would urge you to look at how many people are in your community and how many people have come and brought this to your attention. We should not be making decisions, in my opinion, simply because we have a few people who aren't happy with the things that we're doing or how things are running. We have an obligation here in this house to do what is best for the greater good. And I believe that we do that, and we do it quite well. I've said before that in my first term in this house, I fully believe that we should reduce county council. But throughout that term and throughout this term, I have learned that I think that would be a mistake, because there is a great workload and we do a lot of great things, and everything we do in this house has an effect on the whole county, not just a few municipalities for the most part. And, when I hear fellow council members talk about the workload, I couldn't agree more. 68 seats to fill in committees. When we go through the process, I'm sure it's not easy to fill all of those seats, and to cut that in half. And then to speak about, having an effect on the municipalities and how they
decipher what their council should be. That's not our role. And when we look at the wage aspect of it, yes, it's a large wage increase when you compare it to the wage that's actually been received today. But when you look at it in its totality and what other councils, both municipally and from the upper tiers, receive, it isn't a large increase. It simply puts us at the 50th percentile. And I believe wholeheartedly for everyone in this house that this is not about money. It's not about money for the individuals in this house, and it's not about money overall. It's about making sure that we can attract high-quality people who are willing to work hard to do good things for our communities and for our constituents. And it's about evening the playing field so as that the people who can apply and put their hand up to do the jobs that we do can afford to do so and make somewhat of a living wage to do this job. So we don't have, a very slim and narrow margin of people in our communities who can or are willing to do this. This decision that we will make today, I believe, is one of the most important decisions we'll make. And I'll end with this. It's easy to say a few people have come and complained for whatever reason, whether it be dollars and cents or whether it be they believe we're bloated and because we're 32 people. And it's easy to reduce that number. But I would ask you to think about this. If we reduce that number, a number that we know today works and works exceptionally well, it isn't broken. Why are we fixing it? And to reduce it because we think the federal or provincial government might do that for us, I agree with my colleagues. I would invite then the provincial government to come before this house and tell us how much they've increased their houses over the last several terms and years. Because they won't look good if that was the case. And what I'll say is that easy to reduce. If we find that doesn't work, it's going to be very difficult to increase it again. So I'll leave it at that for now, Your Worship. Thank you for the time, and I ask people to really think hard before you make a decision on how you're going to vote about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor McDonald, and then I got some folks from in the house here.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just find a lot of the comments that I was going to make were made by Councillor Brian Smith, but where I find myself today is exactly where I found myself the last meetings when we were making all these decisions. We're putting the amounts of how big our council is going to be, but not talking about the increase in the wages. Are we keeping it that way or not? I know that it's going to come, but it's always like we're coming behind it. And I do believe that it's not about money, because the amount of money, and you're going to do the 16, I don't think you've saved anything, but what you did do is lose a lot of the gifts that the other 16 have been bringing to this table for many years. So I would caution also about who said what, because when I was explained that it was not the provincial government that we even looked at our size of our government, they certainly made a comment on the increase of our wages, but not about the size of it. They did mention lots of times about the size of our own councils. So I do agree that the workload is a lot for a part-time warden, but I do believe that what we're doing right now has worked and has worked for a long time. So I'm stuck between a hard place, because I don't know what you're doing with the wages, but I do know that how we sit here and do the job has been working really well for us. And I do believe that the residents of the county see a lot of the good work that we've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKellen.
Thank you, Warden. Just wanted to add to the conversation that I do agree with option 2. I do agree that we can go down to a 17-member council. What I don't agree with, and this, my opinion, has since changed since this first conversation in October, is I think if we're going to appoint a warden, we should elect a warden. I think this House represents the people of Simcoe County, and I think the head seat at this table should be absolutely elected at large within the county. It's 2024. Elections are primarily online anyways. You don't have to door knock the entire county. And I believe that this council can run efficiently with a 17-member council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Measures.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and it's been a very interesting conversation here. I reflect upon several members, who have spoken already, and I'm thinking that there is one of the trends that keeps coming up, and that is that people have said the word workload. I just want to comment on that. This is my second term as being the mayor, although I've been on council since 2006, and I can observe my predecessors as mayor of the Township of Clearview that the workload has consistently increased and increased and increased. And this term, there's a lot of information and a lot of phone calls and a lot of interaction and a lot of work and a lot of meetings that you have to go to now. And as a result, the mayor's office is very busy, 100%. I would expect that each of my colleagues who are mayors would understand that they are very, very busy. Your Worship, you've commented many times that you're busy in your home office as well as here serving the greater Simcoe County. And so this brings me to the point about why we do have our deputy warden or deputy mayors. And I think that our deputy mayors do consistently provide support to the county. They provide support to the community. They act as in my community, our deputy mayor acts as a sort of a counselor at large. And I'm very grateful to have that. And so I think that we as a house, looking at the numbers across our entire county, I think that we should remain at 32 at this time. I think that the opportunity to change to 16 should be offered to upper tier governments to make that type of decision. I think that the system is already in place for that to happen. And I would like to point out that this debate has been going on for well over 20 years. Speaking with and hearings from previous mayors in my community that have sat here at the House and worked with this administrations, that this debate continues to go on. It rages basically every term that there should be a discussion about reducing. And yet, when Councillor Chair Dolan brought up the term bloated government, I immediately thought of the provincial government themselves, which was mentioned earlier on what a bloated government they are. They have expanded over and over and over again. And why did they do that? Because the population of the province has increased. That's simply the case. Well, our population here at Simcoe is increasing too. And so I think it would be irresponsible for us to move to 16 at this time. I think 32 will continue to work. And I think that we should represent and respect the fact that as part-time mayors and part-time deputy mayors, we have given of our time, our family's time, et cetera, and our community's time to come here to the county to work for the greater good. And I think that more oars in the water are helping. So I think I would rather stick with the 32 at this time. Your Worship, I would like to speak briefly on the comments about a full-time warden. While I absolutely respect the idea of a full-time warden, and I do think it's a needed thing, I think that it may be premature at this time to appoint it. I respect what Councillor McClellan just said about it being an elected role. I'm very concerned, as I brought it up back in October, that we may be in a position where we have an elected or appointed elected person who then falls underneath the Municipal Act and does not have any ability to have a recall process in place. Now, I know that there is some legislation coming from the province. They're talking about that, about whether we can recall politically elected officials from their position. That's still an unknown, and so I would recommend that, as Councillor McClellan said, that the person be an elected person across all of Simcoe County. That way, the warden would have an actual mandate from elected officials. 32 members or 16 members in the House, yes, we are electorates across the county, but I don't think that represents the wishes of the entire electorate in the role of a full-time warden. So at this time, I would not be in support of option number 2 as it's been presented, and I'd be interested in someone else making a motion to keep us the way we were. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I have back online Councillor Anderson. I think you had a hand up a while ago.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'll be brief because I think most members have covered the topic. And that I think proves to the point here that we have a good working group. We have a great council here that have offered a lot of opinions, and I don't think that will happen with 16 to the extent that we do with 32. I also have concerns here that this is the easy thing and potentially not the right thing. It's easy to say, let's just cut us in half, but is it really the right thing? And I know the governance committee has looked at this. I know the county of Simcoe has looked at this for a number of years. I'm just concerned that this is the easy way out, potentially, where we could look at other options that may be more time consuming and more problematic. But if we're looking at the governance of the Simcoe County, then that's something we really have to look at, is whether we're doing the easy thing or the right thing. And sometimes the right thing is certainly hard. And I also just want to acknowledge that, we have the models here and everybody's using the greater good. We have the new one here now is to build up Simcoe County. And I do believe that we need to build up Simcoe County and not tear down. We are 32 members strong, and the representation that we offer to the general public, to our electorate, is what this is all about. We have 32 members sitting here that are representing the residents of Simcoe County, and more representation for the electorate is better. Thank you.
Councillor Cox.
I'll be brief because everyone has said anything I wanted to say plus more, but I definitely would like to say that I agree with Councillor Measure's comments, and I definitely agree with Councillor Brian Smith's, and I really believe that we really have to think on this long and hard. I have been here for a long time, and we have discussed this, and this works. And I think we all have to remember that. And as far as fair representation goes, as this county population increases, we need to stay where we're at. That's fair representation. And we all need to understand that we're all here as a team working together. We don't pull separately. And I'd like to go back to the oar part. We're all pulling the oars together to get this vote forward. I believe we should just leave it alone. And I do believe the comment about we don't have a good plan for the future. We have ideas. We've knee-jerk reacted to many things. The cost of having 32, the increase in wage, and then we switch around and we do something. I think the time has come that possibly the governance committee and staff have to sit down and make a good, solid plan. If it's something that they really believe in and that maybe next term that's something they want, go ahead and do it. But we need to have a plan, and we don't have one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerbel.
Thank you, Warden. And just a few comments, really, and I want to thank everyone for providing the opportunity for reconsideration here. There was mention of 68 spots for council, and I just want to think back to municipal councils where quite often we've got community members who are interested in assisting their community, and I think some of the positions that council members currently hold could certainly be fulfilled by members of the public, members who are interested in the county, members that are interested in assisting the county in some of those roles. Obviously, some of them should be held for council members, but having members of the public who have a keen desire to assist certainly is not a detriment to having them welcome to some committees that presently maybe councillors sit on. So I think that's an area that could certainly be looked at. When we talk about folks out there, I'll be honest with you, a lot of folks have absolutely no idea how many people sit on county council. They don't have any idea some of the roads that county council is responsible for when they phone up the municipality for some of the services that the county actually provides. The folks that I did speak to during the campaign, and I have spoke to since this has been in the news the last little while, when I get 3 or 4 calls or 3 or 4 emails with respect to how they feel about what's going on at county, that speaks to me that there's more folks out there because, when the squeaky wheel is the one that makes the call, there's usually other folks that are on board with that as well. When folks do understand that council is comprised of 32 from the 16 municipalities, I often get from them that they're quite surprised and they don't understand why it can't just be one. I guess the other piece here too is that 20 years they've been meeting. That's the number that came up, and talking about a reduction, and it's never been undertaken. And I don't know whether it's been because council has had cold feet in the past and decided not to do it, or I hate to say it, is it a matter of self-preservation? Because for myself, I voted for the reduction in council size, and I'd be the first one to vacate this seat if that came to be. The other example I think we have to keep in mind, and it's been alluded to here, is the provincial government's position on efficiencies and reductions, trying to make things work better, work faster. And when I think back to Mr. Doug Ford, his first act was one of his first acts was reducing the size of Toronto City Council from 47 to 25. And I just can't fathom that if it can be done in Toronto, that it cannot be done here in the county of Simcoe with this council. So I supported the reduction at the very beginning, and I continue to support the reduction going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just quickly, I just agree that we could do quite well with 16. A lot of discussion has related to the committee work. We have a governance committee that I'm quite confident could take a look at that and make some revisions. For instance, we have 4 county reps, 3 plus myself, that sit on the health unit. Do we really need 4 county reps sitting on the health unit? We could probably get by with 1 or 2. So those are some examples of where that part might be looked at. The other thing is that we've had some speakers that have made reference to justifying the wage increase due to the fact that we did a study, and that was basically we'll go in the 50th percentile. But we've done the same with respect to composition. And that study has come out saying 16 is where we should be. So it can't have it both ways. The other thing is population increase. Certainly that's going to happen, but I don't think any of us are contemplating increasing the size of our municipal councils because of the population, or staying there because of that. So I definitely agree with the 16, and I thank Councillor Leduc for bringing it up. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I've got a few more. I've got Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Your Worship. And not to go back into history, but prior to '94, there was 32 municipalities making up the county. When amalgamation came in, we cut the number of municipalities within the Simcoe County down to 16. I'm surmising at the time, although I was on council, I wasn't sitting here in the House. But because of the radical change that was going on, that's where the floor decided to turn around and name a deputy mayor to continue with the 32 members. Now, it's just been my observations over the years, having sat on a 15, a 9, a 7, and a 5-member council, and now a 32-member council, the only difference is the percentage of members changes on their view for the vote taken. So what I did for curiosity, and with the help of the clerk's department supplying me the 10 recorded votes that we've had, and actually we had another one today, as a comparison, I took in the 32 members and then applied a 16-member council comprising of the mayors or their alternates, and then the deputy mayors and their alternates to form a council. When I applied the weighted votes to each of the columns, the overall decision did not change. The only thing that did change was the weighted votes. Those numbers changed. So in a nutshell, basically whether you have 32 or 16, nothing would have changed. Weighted votes, we talk about, even the provincial level increasing members. This county has turned around and taken a different approach. I believe it was in 2003 or 8 or whenever when they applied the weighted vote per population. That is actually great. So to me, my opinion is to still stay with option 2. A lot of debate has gone on, but amendments to our procedural policy should cover a lot of the committees, how we elect the warden and everything else. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 more. I have Councillor Hamlin, Gordon, and Locke. So Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Warden. I won't repeat what anyone said. I am in favor of option 2. I do think sometimes when an organization like this makes a change, we don't have all the answers at the time the change is made. We have to make a change, and then we see where the issues are, and we fix it. So as one of my colleagues suggested, maybe we use volunteers on some of our committees like we do at the local level. At Toronto, when the provincial government slashed the number of councillors, they increased substantially each member the number of staff. I'm not saying we have to increase our staff, but maybe we take half a person who will help us monitor things at the county level. These are just, I'm throwing out as ideas. Yes, we're not going to have all the answers day one, but we'll get there. I'm totally convinced of that. The point I wanted to also raise is I've been curious as I've been sitting here, how many people do we represent and what is the change? And of interest, I took the population of the province and divided it by the number of seats in the Ontario legislature. And I know the population includes children and so on, but just for apples to apples. So they each represent about 120,000 people. And at the MP level in Ontario, they each represent about 1 million. At our level, at 32, we represent 17,000. If you take the population of the county at 550,000, divide it by 32, you get about 17,000 people that we each represent. If you double it, all of a sudden we represent 33,000 each. It's not exactly the right analysis because I know in Collingwood I'm going to be representing, as if I'm one member, a lot more people than say in Ramera. But just to give you a sense, I don't feel like we're so overburdened having one person here voting that we can't supplement what we do with some behind the scenes help. And I just won't repeat other people's comments, of course, but I just will be voting for changing it to 16 members. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Thanks. Great discussion on this. It's unfortunate that, we shouldn't really be talking about the wage increase because that needs to stand on its own. I can understand how it ties in indirectly this, but we're not debating that one right now. The bottom line is the way this conversation started, I think by conflating the deputy mayor's status in our own municipalities with the outcome of this vote, I think that didn't help anything. Councillor Leduc, I think you're hurting yourself there. You shouldn't have left that one out of this. What we do in our own municipalities with our council size is entirely up to us, and it really has nothing to do with this. Because of course, if we keep a deputy mayor, that deputy mayor could be the alternate here. And I would go one step farther, saying that in the New World Order, which I do support the reduction, these committees that we have could easily be changed so that they could consist of alternates, which then allows that alternate more than really casual interactions with the county. Right now, if I haven't missed a meeting, I don't think, if I'm sick, I would. But, an alternate doesn't get a lot of chance to get their feet wet in county if they were participating in our committees. I think that negates the whole concern about us being overworked on the committees and gives them a chance to interact and interface with the county more and bring those diverse voices without having to, bloat up this chamber. So deputy mayor thing has nothing to do with this decision in my mind. And again, many of us have already reduced our council sizes in Simcoe County and continue to function very well. And to Councillor Walker's point, I have yet to hear any municipality asking or making the case to go back to a larger council. I'm not saying that won't happen ever, but it hasn't happened yet. And I know tomorrow night like we do every term, just like we do here, we'll be discussing a potential reduction in council size in our municipality because in our comparators, we're way bigger than our comparators. So this conversation has to happen every term. So I wouldn't use the fact that here we are again talking about it as a negative. That we have a duty to do that every term. So Committees, again, I said alternates. I'm just going through my notes here. I think that's an easy solution to that one. Speaking to the province issues, you know, I really wish I could cite the province and the feds as being leaders in reduction, you know, more than just having a ministry called red tape reduction. I'd like to actually see the reduction. But unfortunately, that isn't happening, so we can't really rely on the province. But that doesn't give us a hall pass to doing the right thing and showing leadership that perhaps they can't. I'm just going to throw out there that I suspect the rationale for the bloat we see, at least provincially, is the fact that their wages have been frozen for more than a decade. And rather than the really bad optics of our government asking to increase their wages, they simply create more ministers and more deputy ministers and PAs that do command a larger salary. So it's kind of a sneaky way of giving your members a raise, because they really work for like a terrible rate, quite frankly, to be an MPP. So there's a workaround. So I suspect that's why it's happened, you know, rather than, you know, voting themselves raises provincially. The bottom line here is whatever we vote on today is going to hit the triple majority. So this is going to go back to our councils. So the councils and the mayors and deputy mayors and the public in each of our municipalities will get a chance to weigh in. So from my perspective, I'd like to see this, you know, reduction passed today, knowing full well that it could simply not, you know, collect and amass enough support in our municipalities as each of us goes back and makes our case yet again in our own council floor to convince our peers to put their hands up or not. So I think the responsible thing from my perspective is, you know, we've increased our council size to, you know, arguably a record 33, and we've increased our salary. I'm not going to argue with the merits or what have you of the salary, but I think the two can't coexist in today's economy, and it just looks terrible. And perception is a big deal. You know, that's quite frankly what gets you voted in again or not good things you did. It's the perception people have. So I think that I'll be supporting this option to reduce our size again. I'd love to flesh out whether the things like your position, warden, is elected at large. I think those are all things we can deal with later. I don't disagree with that. It sounds like a good idea. But I'd like to hear more from our governance committee. That's why we have them. So I think we need to not selectively pick and choose which recommendations that are well-founded and studied we adopt. We either put those committees together to do the research for us and present us what they believe is the best option. We had that. We missed that opportunity to adopt it then, and I'm asking that we try that now and put it in the hands of our local municipalities and their councils to ultimately decide whether they agree or concur with our decision-making. And we can only do that if we make a change. If we don't make a change, they never get a chance to weigh in.
Thank you. You did point out something I want to remind the House of. Yes, if whatever we pass today now goes to a public meeting, and then that's where we'll see the public, and then from there handed down to the local councils for that triple majority. So I have Councillor Laux, Lavoie, and Bell. So Councillor Laux.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, and once again, great conversation on every aspect, on 33, 17, 16, vote this, vote that, or remain the same. Unfortunately, I still have a problem with the fact of there's decisions to be made on 1, 2, or 3, but there's not enough meat on the bone there to decide for me to make a decision. I'd rather, from what I've heard, I'd rather just stay with the way we were, because I don't believe, and no offense to the governance committee, I don't believe there's enough initiative on one way to choose one way or another. You know, Cabral, Walker, Hamlin, you all discussed on, yeah, we can reduce, but I don't want to vote on something and find out, oh, we're going to figure out how to do it later. I'd rather have that. I'd rather have that option on the plate so that I know if I'm going to reduce this council in half, then here's the actual options and here's how we're going to do it. Not let's figure it out as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavoie.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'd like to wish a Happy New Year to those in chambers, in the gallery, and to the public. And for deputies everywhere, I do think that the workload for deputies is also to be considered here. And I think the sharing of that workload is very important for each of our municipalities. I'm not in favor of reducing the House, and I do agree that maybe the 3 parts of this should be separated, the permanent, or the full-time, warden, and the size of the council and the wages. I don't think that the workload is going to decrease, and I do think that the geopolitical circumstances in the world, particularly to the south of us, are going to make things more complicated in this chamber, not less complicated. If we think we've seen a storm so far, we're in for something yet to come. I do want to note that in the earlier discussion, there was the point raised that this House should look like its population. And I would point out to this House that if we reduce its size, it will look less like the population. There will be less of a hair change color, as I believe one of the councillors referred to it as, if we reduce it. Those are just the numbers for today. The other thing I would like to point out is the matter of the weighted vote. And I do think that if we drop to 16 members plus a full-time warden, the weighted vote will only require 6 members for a majority. And I think that that is dangerous. I think that the nature of having 32 involves a certain dilution of that power that smaller municipalities will not have the advantage of. The smaller municipalities will become at quite a significant disadvantage should members of the larger municipalities come together as a bloc. And I would warn against that for this House. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I had one more. Councillor Bell.
Yep, I think everything has been said, but I think Councillor Locke said what I was going to say, is that I was open-minded. I listened to everybody's comments, but I have not heard anything convincing enough to say that other than saving money, there's any benefit to us reducing at this point. For instance, I have 31 years in liquid and solid waste. I come here and when there's something on the floor about waste, I feel pretty confident in my comments and my input, and I think that's value to this House. I think there's people here from the legal background, from social service background, from accounting background, and I think you take away from that. You're not considering the debates, not necessarily the outcome. Sometimes it's the debates that will sway people one way or another. So sometimes I might have something, or I have no idea, but there's other people in here that are more experienced in that industry and can really give me a better understanding. And so I think we're taking away from the actual discussion and debates, I think, is some of the most important work that we do in here. So I don't see any reason at this time to change. If we had it better as well, I don't feel like rolling the dice and saying we'll figure this out later. I don't think that's good governance on our part as a House. I think that has to be laid out in front of us. If we're going to make a change, we have to understand the structure, how that structure is going to change, how we're going to start doing things moving forward with 16 members. So at this time, we've had a full discussion. I think I was the last person to speak. So I make news headlines all the time. I don't care. I'll be the one to throw it out there and say, I'm going to put a motion forward that we remain the same.
I've got Councillor Burkett and then Councillor Fryer. And then I will start looking for motions. Councillor Burkett, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. Great discussion. So here we sit. And I look to each and every one of you. When we have our agendas printed and our great staff here that write great reports, we base our decision on the information that is in all of our reports. Today, and I've heard it from Councillor Locke, we want to reduce County Council to 16. Where is the report that structures what we're going to do, what's going to happen? Like, how are we going to move forward with it? How can I make a decision when I don't have all the information in front of us? I don't have everything. Like when I heard comments about reducing the size of the council in Toronto. Well, I think in behind each council members, they now had to hire 8 or 9 extra staff. There's a cost associated with that. So are we going to do the same thing here at County Council? So without all that information, I have to leave it the way it is and happy to support a warden at large.
Thank you. So we've come full circle. I'll go back to Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden Clark. And the main reason I raised my card was after Councillor Miskman's, he was going to put a motion on. I had indicated so it was just a procedural question. If what I had said earlier, that I was prepared to make the motion at the appropriate time, is that still stand, or you're willing?
Yes, I can answer that. If we're done the debate, then I want to explain clearly the House now. It's no longer a 2/3 majority. It is straight 50% plus one. That's what we're voting on now. So I was going to suggest, based on what I've heard here, what I think is going to carry is 17. So I was going to look for a motion on that. Again, it's 50%. So if 50% doesn't want 17, that'll be defeated. And then I would look for the 33, which is what we passed before. If 50% plus one support that, then that is carried. If that is not carried, we don't need a vote on status quo because status quo stays where it's at. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jonathan. We could vote on status quo, but it would be unnecessary. Councillor McKellen, questions?
Thank you, Warden. I would move option 2, but that we include that the warden is elected at large.
Look for clarification.
Yeah, thanks, Warden. So we don't have a seconder at the moment for the option 2 piece. I will just clarify the report, the original report that lays out some of the sort of details of what's included in each option was on today's agenda. And so if, you know, a motion to put option 2 back on the floor is brought forward, I just want to clarify that option 2 includes, you know, 1 mayor representative from each of the 16 lower tier municipalities, and 1 additional member of council who will be appointed as warden for a 4-year term. The weighted vote formula maintains the same, with the votes concentrated to the mayor representative, and then the warden would receive a weighted equal vote to that of the local municipal member with the lowest. So I'd say there were some sort of assumptions or defaults made within the report with option 2. The method for selection of the head of council is by appointment. So my suggestion to sort of reach the result Councillor McClellan is looking for is to put option 2 from the report on the floor, and then you could take an amendment to change the method of selection of the head of council from an appointment process to an election at large.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Councillor Dolan, a question.
Thank you. If I could, through you, Your Worship, to the clerk, could we not then just split the question into 3 and vote on the 3 pieces? Vote first on the compensation, then on the warden, then on the weighted vote?
So I'll just clarify, compensation is not part of this debate at the moment. What the subject that is being discussed right now is head of council and council composition options. And I think a lot of what is here around the weighted vote piece, the method of selection for the head of council, the mayors, the size of council does sort of need to be packaged together, because what we would do is come back with a draft bylaw to make it all happen. And it would all be subject to triple majority, the things we're talking about. So to some degree, I think it does have to be packaged, but there are certain elements like the method of selection for the head of council, or if there was a desire to change the weighted vote formula, those could be taken as amendments.
That's what I was looking for. So you'd put the motion on the floor and then there'd be amendments added, and I'm seeing a nod. So you would move the motion to option 2?
Yes, I would, Warden.
Do you want to move it, or do you want to add an amendment to the motion? Okay, so Councillor Fryer, you'll move it, and I think Councillor Duke will second. Option 2, which is 17. So that's full-time warden and reducing to 16. Mm-hmm. So now so that's on the floor now. Clarification, and then I'm going to go for an amendment. Go ahead.
Should we not be voting on what was on the floor first to deny it before we are going to an alternative option?
Well, and the reason I withdrew it was to have the open debate. I mean, you're going to have the same result because it's 50%. So that's why I was just listening to the debate and trying to do the mental math in my head, and I'm trying to streamline it to what I think is most efficient, which is why I've gone with the 17, doing the mental math. And I could be wrong. I'm going to find out here in a minute. But that seemed to be where the debate was going. Councillor Fryer, clarification, please.
Well, again, clarification, because I believe it's being withdrawn.
Yes, it has
Right?
been.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so we could have the wholesome debate. Otherwise, we would have had to do amendments all the way through, which can get kind of clumsy. Councillor McKellen, you have an amendment.
Yes, Warden, thank you. I'd like to amend the motion that we include a full-time warden that is elected at large. Thank you.
Do I have and we're going to pull the motion up on this. How do we do that without losing my?
We just need a second.
Is there a seconder for elected at large? I'm not, Councillor Gordon, I do have a seconder, so we'll pull the motion up on the floor. Councillor Bell, comments on the amendment?
Yeah, comments on the amendment only. I would be strongly opposed to this because I don't think that's fair to the rest of the municipalities in this county of Simcoe, simply because somebody from Bradford who has a higher population than Ramera, you'll never see a warden be appointed or elected from Ramera Township. So you're actually limiting it to the highest population areas, and I don't think that'd be fair for the entire county.
Councillor Cox, on the amendment.
Yeah, I'm speaking to the amendment. Once again, we're doing a knee-jerk reaction. We need to either pass one or not pass it and make some decisions. We're picking out things and we're deciding things and they're going to make a big difference, and I get that. But we just can't say all of a sudden when we haven't even discussed how or what's going on. That's just I can't support that.
And correction on this, elected at large would require a triple majority, would it not?
Your worship, yes. The selection method for the head of council is very much spelled out in the municipal act as something that triggers the triple majority process.
So that means that the amendment technically is legal. Yes, that's because we're trying to deal with the triple majority. Any other comments on that, the amendment? I'm seeing Councillor Snell and Councillor Brian Smith online. Go ahead, Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. I have concerns with this amendment as well. You know, it's difficult to capture the attention at times with folks and residents for their own municipal election and voting in folks that are able to represent them on the lower tier. To put the head of council in those hands, I think would be irresponsible. I think that this House, having innate knowledge of its operation and each of the folks and their skill sets, should be making that decision. So this is not something I could support. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I had Councillor Brian Smith and Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's just important on this amendment to caution Council that we're going down with this amendment and with this choice, I believe, some very unknown and dangerous roads. You know, my colleague, Councillor Lavoie, brought up an absolute excellent point, probably the most important point of this debate today, in my opinion. And that is by going to 16, 6 individuals is predominantly the southern end of the county will have the ability to sway a vote.
Councillor, could I just interrupt you there? It's just the amendment right now, which is a warden elected at large. That's the amendment we're speaking on at the moment. As opposed, like, it's an amendment to the 17. So first we're speaking on the amendment, which is the warden at large.
So I'll speak to this then later. With respect to the warden at large, then, Your Worship, I also think that this is somewhat of a caution flag that goes up for me, and that is that you know, the warden is the representative county council that leads our council, that takes us in direction. The most important point I think can be made about the head of council, any council, is their ability to lead and persuade and to change direction. The great thing about the way it works now, where the warden is elected by the members of this House, we know that we're electing an individual who is here and who has absolute, no doubt, the county at top of mind and of most importance. Electing at large, I think opens a door perhaps for the ability for that to change. And I think that could be very dangerous for county council. We could end up going in, because there's no ability at this point for a recall. We could end up going in directions that the rest of county council really doesn't want to be going in. And so for that reason, I can't support this. Thank you.
My concern would be a warden with strong mayor powers, because that would open the door for that. So you could have a warden that's actually opposed to what the House is trying to do. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, through your worship. So again, I go back to do we have the ability to hear, even with a triple majority, are we able to put this motion on the floor and approve it, even if we get a triple majority at our local councils? Or does the province, through the Municipal Act, have to okay it?
That I'll look to the clerk for.
So again, I go back to the same story. There isn't enough information before us to make a decision. So here we are again, making a hasty decision without all the facts before us.
Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. So I'll clarify, the main motion right now is to support option 2 as outlined in the report, which was a 17-member council. And that option included an appointed warden. So right now the amendment here is to change the selection of the head of council from an appointment process to an election at large. It would be, all of this would be subject to triple majority. Whether the selection of the head of council is changed through this amendment here, if the main motion were to pass, we'd come back to a public meeting. Council, I just want to clarify as well, would have a final vote actually on the bylaw itself to, change council composition. And then if that were to pass, if this House passes a bylaw to change the council composition, then it would go to step 2 in the triple majority process to the lower tiers, looking for consent to that bylaw. And a majority of the lower tiers would have to consent to it, representing a majority of the electorate. So to your question and I'm not sure if you might have to repeat your question, but it is subject to triple majority, and baked into this option, there's certainly, it's council's prerogative here to determine whether they want an appointment process for the head of council or an election at large.
So supplementary, if I may, through you, your worship, to the clerk. So the province doesn't have to step in if it gets approved and we elect a warden at large. We can do it here at this level as long as we get a triple majority at our prospective councils. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe that's the way the Municipal Act is written. However, the province can do what the province wants to do, but you're right. It's not required. This is something we can decide amongst ourselves and the local municipalities. Councillor Lavoie, and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Would it be helpful just to attach this amendment to wherever we land, rather than trying to deal with it now and just proceed with the matter as to the size of council?
No, it has to be attached to one of the motions. Whether it's 33 or whether it's 17, it has to be attached to the motion. Correct? Yes, getting the nod from the clerk. So it would have to be an amendment to this motion. Then you would pass the main motion as amended. And if defeated, then we go to the 33, and then it would be an amendment again if so desired. Any other questions for Councillor Leduc?
So, Warden, we'd be voting on the amendment first. If it doesn't pass, then we're voting on the motion.
Correct.
Okay.
So I will go to Councillor Gravel, then Gordon, and then look for clarification again.
Thank you, Warden. Just with respect to the amendment, it's here, it does indicate that it would be appointed as warden for a 4-year term among any eligible elector, which really could be anybody within Simcoe County who fits the criteria and is voted into that position. I also want to point out that just in Durham region, their chair is elected at large. It is the members of council that come from the various municipalities. So it is something that already exists out there. So I don't think we should necessarily be afraid of it. I don't know what side of the fence I'm sitting on that. I'm still mulling it over in my head, but I think it's important for us to know that it does happen in other jurisdictions.
Yes, actually, both options happen in other jurisdictions, so it's a decision of this House. Councillor Gordon.
Thanks. It's not often that our local municipal councils get to actually weigh in and have a real material impact on the decisions made in this House. And I think if, with the assumption that, hopefully we pass the size reduction and it goes to them for consideration, why not tag this other one on? This elected at large warden is not a hill I'm dying on, but I seconded it because I hate to see someone's motion just die without a seconder. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So if we're going to pass one, I would argue, let's pass both. And let's put this bring it back to our councils and have the conversation, knowing that none of this is binding until there's triple majority, which is a very large hill to climb. So, I don't think we should stifle that conversation and take away that opportunity to not only make our arguments again at our local level, but to let our councillors weigh in and our community through that public engagement process. This is a real opportunity for us. So I'd like to see as many of these options, in this case it's two, flow from this House back to our individual councils where we can fully debate this, and then that can inform this House. Because again, it's rare that our municipal councillors get any opportunity at all to weigh in on really important issues in this House. They can't tell us how to vote, and a lot of times, they don't even hear about, what we do until it's in the news or something. Some of our agendas actually have us doing updates. But long and short of it is, I'd like to see this one passed, this amendment passed, only so that can be an add-on question that can be asked to our local municipalities, and then that information can be brought back and inform this House.
Okay, Councillor Cox on the amendment.
Yeah, just to go back to the comment that Councillor Gordon made, through the chair to the clerk, how much time do we have for this triple majority and when it all has to be done?
Jonathan?
Through your worship. So the end of 2025, essentially.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, as outlined in the Municipal Act.
Okay, so I have an amendment on the floor. The amendment is elected at large as opposed to appointed by this House. So that is the amendment for how the warden is elected. So if everybody is 100% clear on what you're voting on, I'll state before we call a vote, my concern would be you may not have a warden that's working on behalf of this House. They may be working on behalf of different entities. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, on the amendment, any questions? All in favor of the amendment? I'm going very, just the yeses, just the green cards. Okay, all opposed? The amendment is defeated. Correct? Okay, so now we are back to the main motion, which is 17. So on the main motion that we're voting on now, which is 16 plus a full-time warden. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden. What I would like to get first is a clarification from Clerk McGill on something he mentioned in regards to summarizing about option 2. I believe he pointed out that option 2 actually has it as the mayor's being appointed. So I just want to ask for that clarification to make sure I heard that right. Because I would ask for an amendment to be put into the motion in that regard, if it's the case.
I believe the answer is yes. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Through you, Warden, the answer is yes. So as that report outlined, there were some sort of default assumptions made baked into the option. And option 2, the 17-member council as it stands, is mayors and an appointed full-time warden, which makes 17. This doesn't preclude lower tier councils from appointing an alternate. Should the mayor be absent from a meeting? So to differentiate the two sort of lines of thought here, council isn't the lower tier council, and as it stands with this option, wouldn't appoint the member of council to be at county council. It would be the mayor, but should the mayor be absent from any meeting, the lower tier could appoint an alternate. I hope that sort of clarifies.
I appreciate the clarification. So I'd like to put the amendment forward that it's understood that what will be put forward to the minister is that the municipality determines who the representative will be through their own procedural bylaw or however they establish the process. So I'd like to put that amendment in, even though I have every faith in governance committee looking at some of this and fleshing things out. In that particular case, it's certainly something that I've based my opinion on in supporting going to the 16, is that, as I mentioned earlier, the circumstances could be different for municipalities.
I'm just looking for a clean way to word that. If you're like mayor or alternate or designate or mayor or, how would you word that, Jonathan? See, the trouble is it's at the start of the term. You haven't decided even who your alternate is yet. That's why it defaulted to mayor. We need a representative here at the start of the term. So anyway, if you have a amendment that you can work on, I'll take some discussion here and I'll need a seconder.
I believe the amendment would just be that the municipality chooses the representative.
All right. Do you have a seconder for that? I have a seconder, Councillor Miskimins. So there is the amendment. Now comments, I'll start with Councillor Coghlan, and then I think I saw Cox and then Cabral.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. The alternate, the way that we have it structured today at the county, the alternate option, that's not changing. So would the lower tier municipality, if this was to move forward as is, if a lower tier municipality chooses their alternate and the mayor says, you know what, you continue, whether it's a councillor or whether it's a deputy, the option for that person to attend county council regularly as the representative for the lower tier exists today and would continue to exist next term. Is that correct?
Through you, Warden. So my understanding of what Councillor Fryer is putting on the floor here, and Councillor Fryer, I'll just check the wording with you if you're okay with this, that option 2 be amended to allow the lower tier council to appoint the representative to county council. And I'll repeat myself in a moment. To answer your question, Deputy Warden, what Councillor Fryer is proposing would, instead of the mayor being the set representative, the decision of who represents the lower tier at county council, one representative, would be up to the lower tier council. So it could be it could be any member of the lower tier council, and then they could also appoint an alternate when that member can't attend at county council. So, Councillor Fryer, I just want to be clear. I have wording for your amendment as follows: that option 2 be amended to allow the lower tier council to appoint the representative to county council.
That is the way I worded it, and Councillor Cabral had a suggestion which I didn't really catch either. So I'd actually, I'm not sure who the seconder was, so I'm not sure if Councillor
Miskimins.
Okay,
Miskimins was the seconder.
So through you, Warden, is it okay if Councillor Cabral?
All right, go ahead, Councillor Cabral, and then have Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Warden, and thank you, Tim, and I do apologize for an interruption. I was just looking at the wording and thought if we added a slash or even if we added the word or, that would provide the local council an opportunity to select an alternate to represent the mayor, or it could still be the mayor. So that was the only suggestion I was making, was that particular 2-letter word, or.
I'm looking at the clerk. Does that change the definition?
Yeah, through you, Warden, I think that is a distinction that needs to be made. And maybe you could look to the mover and seconder, because it could default to the mayor, but if the mayor wants to make it a decision of the lower tier council, that's an option. But as I understood your original motion here, it simply just allows the lower tier to choose any member of their council. So the two are different. So I'd want some clarity, and I think the rest of council might want some clarity on that.
From what our discussion, I don't think you want the word or in there. I think you want the local council to choose.
Well, and I'm based on the comments that have been made, I have no problem with saying it's going to be chosen by the municipal councils, as either the mayor or the alternate, because we will have an alternate there. We will have, and let the municipal council decide.
The alternate wouldn't be in place yet, though. But I mean, there is an alternate that's already, the municipal act allows for an alternate, so that's not changing.
Our procedural bylaw is such that it states that the highest electoral vote councillor becomes the alternate if they choose to. So that's what I was basing it on.
All right. Councillor Cox, you're good? I had Councillor Brian Smith, and then Councillor Leduc and Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just clarity. So we again here, I have comments with respect to the amount of county councillors, but we're only dealing with this amendment right now, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I'll hold my comments for later.
Councillor Leduc.
Thank you, Warden. So based on the amendment, I just wanted to refer back to the report. And right in the report, it says council has the option to specify that the appointed member of each local municipality be appointed by the lower tier following each election. But it says, however, the mayor will be the county council on the mayor position. However, the mayor position sitting at county council is considered to be the default. So I go back to what you're saying, Warden. It should be the mayor as a default, but it's the lower tier that can select who they want to sit a county representative. It says right in the option that it's the lower tier that has the opportunity to appoint whoever they want. The default is the mayor, and it should stay the mayor. And then it's the lower tier municipality that can decide if they'd like to choose somebody else to sit at the county council level at that time. So I'm good with the way option 2 is written. It's in there enough to say that we at the lower tier, which it should be our responsibility to decide who's going to come up. The residents need to know that they have an actual representative at the county, and that could be the mayor. And at that time, that's when the decision can be made when it's when the election is over. So I'm good with option 2 the way it is. I don't need the amendment to help me out making my decision here. I think it's well stated in that option already.
I will get clarification from the clerk, Jonathan.
Through you, Warden. So the report essentially says under option 2, the representative is the mayor. So an amendment would need to be brought forward to make, option 2 different from that. The report, Councillor Leduc says that, and this is what is being debated right now, this council has the option to change, how that lower tier representative is chosen by dealing with an amendment right now. The amendment that Councillor Fryer put forward is that the lower tier would have the ultimate option of choosing anybody. So if what you're looking for, Councillor Leduc, is that, the representative defaults to the mayor, but if the mayor
So
doesn't
an example is Springwater, period.
Councillor
Because they have 3 councillors.
Councillor Brian Smith, you're unmuted.
I'm sorry.
And so if you wanted the mayor to be the representative, but the mayor given the option to turn that appointment down, that's an amendment that would have to be made. That isn't Councillor Fryer's amendment at the moment, and that's not what's baked into option 2 at the moment.
Yeah, anything that mentions the mayor means the default, the mayor would have to turn it down first, and that's not what Councillor Fryer is looking for. You are looking for the council chooses the representative, correct?
Okay, my misunderstanding then. I thought it was still the lower tier that could choose. I know at default the mayor, but the lower council could actually choose the representative at the county level. So
through you, Warden, I'll just mention too and clarify that if it is the mayor, the lower tier councils do have the option, as the deputy warden had pointed out, to appoint an alternate at any time. So if the mayor couldn't or didn't want to attend for a given month or a number of meetings, the alternate could attend, and that'd be up to the lower tier council. So that clarification might satisfy some members' concerns.
Councillor Dolan and then Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you. I'm not in favor of the amendment as I believe Councillor Fryer is stating it. I think that I want to use the Police Services Act or the new Community Safety and Police Act to use an example. So the mayor is the default for that board or their representative. So if you end up with a mayor that maybe is not well, or if you end up with a mayor that has a full-time job and they'd rather not take on the added responsibilities of the county, then that could be they're the default, but it could be their representative. I'm in favor of that. What I'm not in favor of is the members elected at large by a municipality, if you're in a ward system, not be chosen, not be one of the people chosen to be on county council.
I have Councillor Hamlin and then Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Warden. I'll just endorse the comments from Councillor Dolan. I think she said it well. And I'll also just add that when, often councils turn over substantially, and those early meetings, council members who might not even know each other would have to decide who would be the county representative at an early meeting. And I think that would be a hard position to put a council in, to pick somebody for 4 years who's going to be the county rep without really knowing each other very well. I'm very much in support of the mayor being the person, and that we have a strong system for an alternative. And I like the one expressed by Councillor Dolan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Yep. Councillor Dolan basically said what I wanted to say. I think it needs to be a member at large, and I think that the mayor can figure that out once it happens, because that's exactly what I was going to say with the Police Services Board.
So on the amendment, which Councillor Fryer, yes.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody's comments, and I just want to be clear. We will have an alternate when an election happens, put in place, most likely by procedural bylaw. All I'm simply saying is I believe the municipal council should be able to decide in that first month if it's the mayor or the alternate that will be sitting as the full-time rep based on their circumstances. So that's what I'm putting forward, and the reason for it. I'm hoping that I'm clear that that's the intention of the amendment that I'm putting forward.
I believe it is. Concerns?
So through you, Warden, if that's the case, that, who the alternate is at the lower tier, if the default, the mayor becomes the representative, the lower tier council would have an option to appoint their alternate. And that alternate could come anytime in place of the mayor. That's the distinction, in place of the mayor versus the representative themselves. It's up to the lower tier council, the mayor, whoever the alternate is, when the alternate comes in place of the mayor. That's up to you. If that's your intention with this amendment, you don't need an amendment.
Clarification I think you're looking for is, can the local council say we want the alternate going and not the mayor?
Yeah.
Do they have that authority?
The clerk just told me that that's able to happen without the amendment. And I think that goes back to Councillor Leduc's question. And I'm glad that I was able to clarify that for the clerk. And I apologize to the House because it sounds like we didn't need to debate about the amendment, so if that's the case.
Let us be 100% sure. Jonathan.
Again, the mayor becomes the representative under option 2 as it stands. When the alternate comes, the mayor essentially has right to that seat at any time. The alternate can come when the mayor is absent, so in the place of the mayor. But if what you're talking about, the amendment you'd be looking for, is to let the lower tier council appoint who the representative is, someone other than the mayor, then that would require an amendment. So if it was, the deputy mayor is our representative to county council, and then that deputy mayor has an alternate, that is an amendment that would be required. But just to send the alternate in the place of the mayor doesn't require an amendment.
Right, but can the council vote that the alternate is the priority? that the alternate is to attend more than the mayor. That's the concern I'm hearing here. Does the local council have that ability to designate an alternate, and it's the alternate that attends the 95% of the meeting? That's what Councillor Fryer is looking for.
The mayor would have the right to that seat.
So then
it'd
you
be
do
up
need
to the mayor.
Yeah.
If they wanted to be absent for those meetings and have an alternate attend, they certainly could. But the mayor would appear as absent on our agendas with an alternate attending in their place.
And I am going to let the amendment stand, please. And one of the main reasons that I'm putting this forward is because I'm listening to my county or my fellow municipal councilors, and I've got to take this back, and I've got to get their approval and majority approval. And this is one of the issues that's being raised to me. So I will leave the amendment as requested, and look to the House to either support, hopefully support it.
Thank you. I did see one other hand. Councillor, got a few now. Yeah, Councillor Lavoie, that was it. Then Burkett, and then LaRose.
Thank you very much. And I'm not quite sure where I sit on this, but I do support the notion that the local council should send a representative, but I also find myself conflicted by the issue of certainty, because there was some commentary with regard to, well, they knew what they were running for when they ran for these seats. And we won't know what we're running for if the local council appoints the representative to this House. So it might, but on the other hand, it might cause people to, the electorate at large, to contemplate the governance of their council, of their county council more, because it could become an election issue. People could run on the basis of becoming a mayor and say, but I don't want to be county councillor, and somebody else could run as a deputy and say, I want that role. So it could create some interesting dynamics in municipal elections. But anyway, I'll leave it as a thought for now. Thank you.
Okay, I do want to try and move us along here. I'll go to Councillor Burkett, but go ahead. Oh, you will need your mic.
My comments to Councillor Lavoie, when I ran, I just wasn't like, I'm a county councillor. So what happens now when all of us run again to that point? So I need some clarity. And again, we haven't got the information. Here we go again, making a decision without all the information before us.
From my position is the mayor is the official spokesperson for their municipality. So that's why we defaulted the mayor and the original one. If the mayor chooses that they're too busy, then it would fall to the alternate. So I know that goes against the amendment that's on the floor. But when you're running for council, the public know that the mayor they're electing is the official spokesperson for their council. Councillor Cox.
Well, I might as well throw something into this. If the alternate comes to 3 council county meetings in a row, does that mean that the mayor then is no longer on it?
Go ahead. Well,
3 meetings in a row.
Well, I don't even know what would happen in this case if the local councillors were to miss 3. Go ahead.
Through you, Warden. So the Municipal Act speaks about a member being absent for 3 consecutive months of meetings. And in that case, the seat would be declared vacant. It's very likely that it could be interpreted that if the mayor is not in attendance for 3 consecutive months, that the seat could be declared vacant. Yes.
That's the way it is today as well. Councillor LaRose, I'll let you speak, but then we need to call the vote on the amendment. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. It has been brought up by a couple of people, but how you go about it while you're running in your local municipality. Generally, it's the mayor and the deputy mayor get elected. It's automatic that they would be the county councilors. So with that said, nobody would know. If you go the other way and the mayor doesn't show up, is that seat declared vacant? That's a very good point. The other point that was brought up is who would receive the salary.
would the mayor get the salary for the person and then say somebody else on my council is going to come and they just get the per diem and the mayor never shows up to county for 4 years and collects the money? We're leaving ourselves wide open. So it goes back to what Councilor Burkett was saying earlier. We don't have the appropriate amount of information to make this decision.
If the mayor didn't show up for 3 consecutive months, then the seat would be declared open under the Municipal Act. So I will go to you, Deputy Warden, but then I'd like to call the vote on the amendment.
Thank you, Worship. I think what we're talking about and that the information, that we don't have the information for myself, what we're debating right now already exists. Currently, a mayor could not show up for 3 months, collect a salary. All of that is in the Municipal Act. We're not changing that today. This is simply putting forward that the mayor is in the seat. If a local tier, if the lower tier decides, if the mayor decides not to, if they choose to alter that county seat, that's with the lower tier. That exists today and that will exist next term.
Okay, so if everybody's clear on the amendment is that the local council chooses a representative to go to council as opposed to defaulting to the mayor. So that summed it up. I think everybody understands that. So all in favor of the amendment? All opposed? The amendment is defeated. So now we are back to the original motion, which is option 2. Councillor Greenlaw, yes. Question on procedure?
Yeah, well, I'm looking to put a motion forward to defer this matter because there seems to be from a number of my colleagues stressed that there's not enough information. I think we need to come back and deal with this in sections. One is the warden, is it a full-time or elected position or appointed? Then the other is, do we increase or decrease the size of county council? And if so, the information needs to be clarified before we make that decision on what are the committees that we're either going to allow citizens to be appointed to so workload can be understood better. But there's too many unanswered questions at this point. And we're just going to prolong this and we're going to go in circles. So I would suggest putting a motion on the floor that the staff come back with a report that's fully encompassing so we can vote on the matters separately at a future meeting.
So I have a motion moved to defer or refer? Need to know that one. Refer, I think, is what I'm hearing. Is there debate on referral?
Through you, Warden. So the matter could certainly be deferred, but if the councillor is looking for a report back, it would be a referral.
My apologies, you're correct. That we refer back to staff to come back with a more fully encompassing report to bring clarity so we're not kind of stuck in this ongoing spin cycle.
I would say that what's in that GOV 2024-210, there is only, I'd say, a certain point at when staff can bring back more information on these options. And I don't know if, Mark, you want to talk to this, but you know, I wouldn't say staff is going to make a recommendation on the size. Staff have brought forward the options that this council has. And this council will be in the position to make the decision. So if there's something specific you're looking for staff to report back on, we can certainly listen or come back with more information on it. But the report in front of you tries to be as extensive as possible to package this up, because at some point you also can't divide this question.
Yeah, the report that was provided in the agenda is the report you're going to get from staff. Staff are not going to recommend one way or the other. This is the decision of this House. And when governance broke it down, we were trying to deal with the issues that require the triple majority, where many of the other issues, how we're going to do the committees, are all after the fact, because if you're not restructuring at all, there's no need to even look into them. So first we have to decide, are we going to change? Is there going to be change? Then you go back and work out the details on the committees and the representation, and I'll call those the minor details. So this is the one that has to be circulated for the triple majority. So your motion, sir, do you still want it to stand, or do you have a direction for us?
I'm not quite confident that we're understanding where we're going with the committees on this, which seems to be a significant, a point that's come up multiple times, as that there's 68 positions. So that's not included in the previous report from staff. Is how are we restructuring that? Are we going to continue with that and just divide that amongst the 16 council members if we reduce the size in half?
Governance has not discussed that, because if we're not changing, then there'd be no change. If there is change, then that'll be the next debate at governance. And there's been a lot of good suggestions made today, whether it be opened up to members of the public or the alternates, or that's the option we'll look at. Again, that does not require a triple majority. That is strictly a decision of this House, how we want to proceed. Jonathan, clarification.
Through you, Warden, just one additional option. If it's the committee's counselor you're looking for more information specifically about, if council were to pass sort of one of these options from the report today, there's also the opportunity still for staff to bring back a report before the bylaw is ultimately enacted. So I understand where you're coming from in terms of the committees. And we could bring back an information report, you know, as part of the public meeting or following the public meeting, before council actually enacts the bylaw to make council composition happen. Just in a sense to keep the process moving, because one thing I'll also just point out, and it was mentioned earlier, the deadline here of achieving triple majority is the end of the year. And there still are a number of steps that need to take place to achieve that triple majority. And we want to be able to give the lower tier clerks, for example, as much heads up as possible leading into the next election. So that I just wanted to float as a potential option. We could certainly come back as part of the public meeting if, you know, one of these options does pass around the committee piece.
Okay, and just to follow, so I have clarity, the triple majority, the last component of it, technically, to make it simplified, is a weighted vote. So, you know, a handful of the larger municipalities will carry much more weight in getting that passed through. And I honestly think that most municipal councils will take the direction of the mayor and deputy mayor that sit on county, because they understand it best out of the lower municipal councils.
So in that, yeah, I guess the last factor of the triple majority is vote, but it still has to be the majority of local councils that also support it. So that's part of the triple majority that would be required. So all of municipalities, every vote will count. There's 16 municipalities. More than 8 of them would have to be in favor of the change. Okay, on the motion on the floor, which is option 2. Now we're ready to open it up for comments. I see the hands lighting up. Oh, are you still putting your referral on, or have you withdrawn it at this time? I didn't have a seconder, but I need to know if the mover's still interested.
Well, I'm interested in putting it on the floor. If there is no seconder, then I'll withdraw.
Seconded by Councillor Bell on the referral for more information. Do you have direction? Deputy Warden.
Thank you. And just for clarification on this, earlier I heard staff say that should this be referred, it would be information on the structure of then just the committees that would be coming forward, because what I think I heard the clerk say earlier is that the information that is in the report is simply the information that's going to come back to us again. So I don't see the point in having the same report come forward for a second time.
Mr. Chair, I might suggest seeking clarification from the mover and seconder on what details would be included in the report, or what subjects you'd like staff to report back on, so I can form the referral motion here.
Well, one is the committee. Where are we going to go with that? But how I look at this is everything's intertwined. Like when we first talked about going to a full-time warden, it was going to be an application process where people would apply, and this council would interview, be part of the interviewing process, and hire some. Now we're over here. We're electing. We're speaking about electing throughout the whole township. So it's a domino effect. We need to separate everything and understand how we're coming into this and voting on each component, and that it needs to be how we approach and pass all this. I think is too intertwined and confusing, where it's like a bill being passed through, and you got a bunch of stuff shouldn't be in that bill, but it's there in order to get the other major components through. So I think we need to separate it for clarity and then bring it all back. That's my position.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you. And on that same point, this House just voted on whether this was going to be at large, and we voted that down. So as it stands today, it is an appointed full-time warden. Clarity from anything aside from that, it was the governance committee's intent to have this House vote on the issues that required 2/3 majority. Separate from everything else that this House doesn't require 2/3 majority. We will have the ability to determine the committee structure. We will have the ability to determine all of those things. But again, there's no point in us doing all this work if there's no change, if it's not the desire of this House to change. So if there is no change, everything stays the same. So I don't see the point in doing a bunch of work if there's no appetite for change.
Okay, I'm still looking for direction though on the referral. I need to know what.
I'll withdraw and we can move on.
It's been withdrawn. So we're back on the original motion on the floor, option 2. And I did have comments. Councillor Brian Smith has been waiting online to comment on option 2, which is what's on the floor, followed by Councillor Leduc. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to come back to the point I was making earlier, and that is at reducing to 16 members. I guess the first thing we've heard many times is that this House has debated this every term, year after year, and it hasn't changed. And I would say it hasn't changed, and the reason why is wisdom. Term after term after term, the councils have looked at this, and council has collectively made the decision that as it sits today is the best option for our county. Otherwise, it would have been changed. And secondly, I want to point out, as my friend Councillor Lavoie pointed out, by going to 16 members, you really double the ability for a small minority of the House to make decisions for the rest of the county. You know, he pointed out 6 members on a weighted vote have the ability then to really move and sway the decisions of county council a great deal. And that is concerning to me. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to the members that would hold that power. And I'm not insinuating that they would do anything awry. But the fact that that ability is there is concerning to me. So if we are going to reduce this, if the House decides to reduce to 16 members, then I absolutely think that we should be looking at the power, if you will, of the weighted vote, because I think it really will take away a lot of the open ability for this council to act as a group, as opposed to a small group of individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leduc.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. I didn't want to get into too much, but I'll tell you, I want to get rid of this misinformation that's on the table right now. So when we talk about 6-member municipalities carrying a vote, I don't understand that one at all. We're 5 in the South. Let's get the elephant out of the room here. Everybody's worried about the South taking over if we downsize this council. We changed nothing. We're going from 32 to 16. We changed no voting, nothing. If we stick with the same voting system, we still only have 36% of the weighted vote. I don't know where this 6 comes from, because we're 5 in the South. If we're talking about this issue, we're 5 in the South. We only get 36% of the weighted vote. The North gets 63% of the weighted vote. If we were even to change the population, voting up based on population, we would only get 46% of the vote versus 54% of the vote in the North. So that 6-member municipality, unless somebody can clarify who they're talking about, it definitely does not meet the North, the southern municipalities. Bringing in even the largest in the North wouldn't make it, because we only have 36% of the weighted vote. So I'm in support of option 2, and I liked what Councillor Gordon said. hey, if you're here for the greater good, let's bring it back to our municipalities. Let's bring it back to our councils. There are so many steps to get this through that chances are it won't get there in the end. But I tell you what, I want to hear from the residents. I want to hear from my local councils if they're in support of downsizing this council. I'm in favor of downsizing it. I don't think this is a risk. There's enough information in this report to tell us that this is a good thing. The fact that we don't have enough information is beyond that. I think the Deputy Warden Coughlin said it very well. Why would we go out and do work prior to knowing what our final decision is? We make a lot of decisions out there that we don't have 100% of the knowledge. I wish I had a crystal ball because then we would make better decisions. But I'll tell you what, most of our decisions have to be down to financial. Is it financially good for us or is it financially bad for us? And this decision, in my mind, from what I've got, it would be financially good for us. So I look at it from a financial point of view, and reducing has to be a financial benefit. The city, I don't even want to talk about the city of Toronto. That is a city within its own self. It has its own municipal act, the whole bit. We are just a upper and lower tier government. So we have our representatives. We represent our citizens of Simcoe County. And to me, this is step one of moving forward and letting our residents tell us what they want. And at that time, our local councils, they'll go out and question our residents. Bradford won't carry the full vote, no matter if Bradford supports it and others don't. We won't carry it. We're not that large. We're not that large in Simcoe County. So to me, this is not something to worry about. I like the fact that we take it back to our residents, let them make the decision. If we're here for the greater good, be here for the greater good and let the residents speak to this. So I'm in support of option 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm just seeking some clarification from the clerk, rather. So the report indicated that the triple majority items were in the report, but is weighted vote triple majority item, or can that be decided by council at a later time through bylaw?
Jonathan.
Through you, Warden. The weighted vote formula is part of this report because the report contemplates adding a member of council, which would be, the full-time warden. And so the weighted vote formula itself, which currently exists in bylaw, would need to be changed. And to change the number of votes for a councillor at an upper tier is outlined in the Municipal Act as requiring triple majority. That's why it is here in this report and part of this option, because it's, sort of linked to the discussion of council composition. So the report, outlines some alternative options for weighted vote, but again, the default under option 2 here is to keep the weighted vote formula for the municipalities the same. And the warden, as the 17th member under this option 2, would receive a weighted vote the same as the lowest member. I hope that clarifies that. The triple majority piece for all of this is a separate matter, and if you need any further clarification on that, I'm happy to provide it.
Thank you, and Your Worship, if I may.
Continue.
Just the comment then. So if the weighted vote formula is just added for the warden and that requires a triple majority, just to confirm again that if council chose to revise the weighted vote formula in the future, that would not require lower tier municipal approval.
Through you, Warden, it actually would. It actually would. So anytime you change the number of votes given to a member of this council, the Municipal Act is clear that would trigger a triple majority requirement. And that's why it is here as part of this report, as I mentioned, because it is changing the number of votes, under this option going from 32 to 16 mayors. Our bylaw currently says, the votes are split between the mayor and the deputy mayor. So that bylaw requires updating, and that is part of this. If it's to be changed in future, it would require a triple majority.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on option 2? Councillor Dolan and then Councillor Lavoie.
I was just going to call for recorded vote when it comes. Thank you.
Okay, so a request has been made. Councillor Lavoie? And then Fryer.
Yes, thank you very much once again. I just wanted to address the issue of misinformation in the House that was called up earlier. I did a calculation of the number of votes. Maybe I did make an error. I'm willing to accept that if that's the case. However, I do note that the top 5 municipalities would comprise 47.6% of the weighted vote. So it would only require one more vote, perhaps the warden, perhaps someone from any other township or municipality. Therefore, I stand on the point that it would only take 6 votes to control the House. Thank you.
I had clarification on that one, Councillor Dolan, then I'll go to your comments. They're different, I would assume.
Thank you very much. I'm a little concerned about the optics or the suggestion that that some voting block would form, because we take an oath when we sit here. We take an oath to support Simcoe County. We take an oath at our own municipalities, but when we sit at this table, we take an oath to do what's best for County Council, for Simcoe County as a whole. And I'll throw out there, when have you ever seen Councillor Leduc and I agree on anything? So.
Okay, James, I'll let that one go. Yeah, it doesn't change the ratio. Whether there's 2 representatives from each municipality or 1, if they're voting as a block, it doesn't change that ratio on a weighted vote. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden. I know you want to call the vote, and I just want to again say how much I appreciate from the House that we had the opportunity to have this discussion today. It helps me with taking whatever the outcome is back to my council. And I think I just want to also say it really accentuates the commitment of the members with the conversation we've had today. And for me, commitment is what governance is all about. Not the makeup of the House, whether it's male, female, young, not so young, 32 or 16. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this debate and hear all the comments from the members. Thank you.
I appreciate the comment, not so young, as opposed to what my children call me. So is there any other comments on the vote, which is option 2? And it's been a request, and we'll put it up on the screen, or I guess somewhere. And then a recorded vote has been requested by Councillor Dolan. And I will call the vote, keeping in mind it's a 50% now, because we're not waiving procedures.
Okay, thank you, Warden. So a recorded vote has been called on this. The resolution is in front of you. And this is a motion for council to support option 2, to pursue a full-time warden, 17-member council. Staff would prepare and issue public notice of council's intention to pass a bylaw to change the composition of county council. Staff would schedule a public meeting for council to consider a draft bylaw that would change the composition of county council. And the notice for that public meeting would be provided to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing in the form of a letter from the warden. So I just want to reiterate again, this would not be a done deal if this carries. It would come back. The public would have an opportunity as part of a public meeting to comment on the draft bylaw. The draft bylaw would include much of the detail that's outlined in the report to make the changes to the weighted vote bylaw and outline, option 2. And then council, again, would have to actually vote and pass the bylaw. So I just wanted to reiterate that. If you're voting in favor of this motion, it's to support this. If you vote no, we'll be back to a clean slate. So Councillor Dolan I'm just going to pull down the motion here. Councillor Dolan had requested a recorded vote. And once again, I'll go through the members alphabetically, starting with Councillor Dolan.
Yes.
Councillor Evans.
Yes.
Councillor Fowler.
Aye.
Councillor Fryer.
Yes.
Councillor Gordon.
Yes.
Councillor Greenlaw.
Not in favor.
Councillor Hamlin,
Yes.
Councillor Locks,
No.
Councillor LaRose,
No.
Councillor Lavoie,
Opposed?
Councillor Leduc,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
Not in favor.
Councillor McClellan,
In favor.
Councillor Measures,
Not in favor.
Councillor Miskimins,
Yes.
Councillor Norcross,
Yes.
Councillor Norris,
Yes.
Councillor Prost,
No.
Councillor Rawson,
Not in favor?
Councillor Sandu,
In favor?
Councillor Brian Smith,
No.
Councillor Michael Smith,
No.
Councillor Snell,
No.
Councillor Van Staveren,
No.
Councillor Walker,
Yes.
Councillor Anderson,
No.
Councillor Bell,
No.
Councillor Burkett,
No.
Councillor Cabral,
Yes.
Deputy Warden Coughlin,
Yes.
Councillor Cox,
No.
and finally, Your Worship.
Yes.
This vote requires a majority. We have 16 in favor and 16 against, with a weighted vote of 88 in favor and 57 against. With that weighted vote, the motion carries.
Thank you. So that's been dealt with. Thank council for taking another look at it. And we had a lot of discussion. So I've got just quick, there's no notice of motion. There's no closed session. And why don't we take a break before I call committee of the whole? So 10 minutes, everybody. Is that enough?
Are back live. Thank you.
So I would, first, we did run overtime this morning longer than we anticipated. Is there any counselors that need to leave early? If you could let me know, right? Look for a show of hands. Counselor Fallis, you pointed out you had to go at sorry, I missed the time, but 12:30, I think it was.
Just to clarify, 11:45.
Okay, thank you. Van Stavern, Counselor Van Stavern.
12:30.
Any others? Counselor McKellen?
12:30, please, Warden.
Okay. See, we're now on item 14, notices of motion, which we don't have any. In closed session, we have none. So now we will move into the committee of the whole. So I'd look for a mover and a seconder, moved by the deputy warden, second by Councillor Corbell, that we move into the committee of the whole at 11:26. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I'll look for a roll call, and I'll welcome our city reps for our first meeting this year, and apologize for keeping you out in the lobby as long as we did.
Thank you, Warden. In addition to those members in attendance at council, we're joined by city representatives. Aurelia Councillor Durnford is joining us remotely. Aurelia Councillor Fallis, the same. Barrie Councillor Hamilton, I believe, is absent. Aurelia Mayor McIsaac is joining remotely. Barrie Councillor Negussi is in the chamber. Barrie Mayor Nuttall is in the chamber. And Barrie Councillor Rayatma is joining us remotely. And you have your quorum. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you very much. I'll look for an approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Warden Coughlin, that the agenda for January the 14th, 2025 meeting of Committee of the Whole be approved.
Any questions on the agenda? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. Opposed, if any? I can't imagine. Okay, do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? Please declare it at this time, or if you find yourself in that situation later, declare it. Not seeing any. So presentations and delegations, all sections, we have none. So now if chair measures, I lost chair measures. I'm just looking to see if he's just out in the room. Sorry about that, Chair. I apologize, Doug. I should have looked down the road before I called the meeting to order. So whenever you're ready, Chair measures.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Nothing better than a phone call from the family right when you're going to be super busy. So I apologize, but as you know, family comes first. All right, Council. Let's see here. We are at, what are we at? Number 18? Or sorry, to number 21. Right. Okay, 21. At this point, we have our consent agenda for Human Services. That the following consented items, having been given due consideration, be received. Can I ask for a mover and seconder? Mr. Smith and Mr. Fryer, thank you. There are 3 items on here. Does anybody have anything they want to pull from that? Yes, Councillor Cox.
I didn't want to pull anything. I just wanted to thank all the age-friendly people that put this forward and the work that they've done, and commend them on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. I also have here, of course, the poster for the recognition event that's coming up. So I look forward to seeing all members of council there. Is there anything further on this item? Seeing none? Oh, yes. Sorry, Councillor Dolan.
I just wanted to point out the letter from the town of Gravenhurst, their expression of gratitude for the help that emergency management offered them during county council.
Thank you. There is a request online. Councillor Fallis.
Thanks. Just regarding the age-friendly report, I just thought I should mention, I'm sure county staff are already aware, but I did note that it did have some of the links from the other age-friendly groups, but age-friendly Aurelia wasn't included. So I just wanted to make sure they knew that age-friendly Aurelia has a website set up. Thanks.
Right. Thanks for that extra information. Appreciate that. Anything further from members? Seeing none, we have a mover and seconder. I'll call the motion. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Moving on to 22, Housing and Homeless Services. Let's see here. There is an item here that Mina would be available to, Mina, our general manager would be available to answer any questions. I'll read the motion and I'll look for a mover and seconder. That item number CCW 2025-004, dated January 14, 2025, regarding the County of Simcoe's encampment response and shelter expansion initiative be received, and that funding proposal for submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing demonstrating alignment with provincial priorities for addressing homelessness and encampments be endorsed. Can I ask for a mover and seconder? Councillor McDonald online, Councillor Fowler also online. Is there, General Manager, did you have any comments you want to ask or mention, or are you just open for questions?
I could give a brief description.
Okay.
Sure. So this was an opportunity that availed itself to the county as a service manager on December 13th, and it was received on December 16th, giving us about 2 weeks to submit an application. The application does call for a few different things to be done, including it being endorsed by your council. We decided to present it at committee as a whole so that both the City of Aurelia and the City of Barrie can also be a part of that review. The application asks for 4 things. One, for us to accept $81,000 in Canada Ontario housing benefit. It's a portable rent subsidy, and apply it to a strategy to help people come inside. Second, it asks for us to submit funding requests on behalf of the separated cities and our member municipalities on the costs of enforcing encampments, things like reconditioning public parks and lands, securing them, the cost of what it would cost to enforce. Third, expanding our shelter system, the cost to expand the spaces temporarily for 90 days in order to bring more people inside. And then fourth, any other additional costs considered, which includes returning public space for public use in the spring. So this is the application we put forward, and we're seeking endorsement here at Council.
All right. Thank you very much, General Manager. I'll go to Mayor Nuttall first, and then I have some others. So,
yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and certainly to General Manager and your team for putting together this application. I think this is incredibly important to respond to the province, to make sure that the dollars that are available are invested locally here. Obviously, this has been an issue in Barrie that's been well documented. Certainly, we have other municipalities inside the county as well as in the City of Aurelia that have also faced some major concerns on this front as well. I do want to, share with County Council that from our standpoint, we really do want to see this move forward. I think that there's some really neat plans that are being discussed and quarterbacked by the county at this point to answer the day. And, in terms of the work the city's done on this to date, it was our request that actually started this entire conversation. It was the request of the Premier and to the Minister of Municipal Affairs that started this conversation to move towards the removal of encampments and the investment in transitional housing and support services to help individuals who are in a very vulnerable position. So we are certainly supportive of this. We'll endorse it at a council meeting coming up. I think that's being shared with the county right now, maybe yesterday afternoon. And it is probably the number one issue that we face in the city of Barrie. It is a social services issue. It's broader than that, even when you consider that we're responsible for keeping our parks in good order. The final piece that I just want to highlight, because this always turns into a bigger conversation, is if you haven't seen, there was a judgment in Hamilton that came out just before Christmas, which really echoed the narrative and the conversation that was being had by most of the big city mayors, as well as what the premier came out in support of, which says that your parks need to be for vulnerable populations, but that includes all vulnerable populations. That includes seniors. It includes children. And so I think there's a bit of a shift within the judiciary right now in terms of allowing municipalities to keep their parks safe and clean. At the same time, we have a responsibility between the county and the city in Barrie and the other municipalities affected to make sure that we do it in a way that is fair to the individuals who are being their tents are being removed. So thank you again to the county for leadership on this, and look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Mayor Nuttall. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say first, I appreciate the province responding to the concerns that were raised and doing it in a quick manner. And in that regard, to our staff, for putting a proposal together in a very quick manner over the holiday period too. December 13th, the announcement, January 3rd, you put it in. So I was just going to ask through the chair to the general manager, when or have you heard anything even just informally, or when would you expect to hear something in a formal basis?
General Manager?
Through the chair. So we have been in direct contact with inquiry questions on our application just this past week, where the province and their staff team have just asked for some follow-up questions to the application. So that's an indicator from past experience that the decision is probably forthcoming in the next few days or week or so. So yeah, we anticipate hearing quickly. The other factor too is the Canada Ontario Health Benefit required a submission on the plan to use those additional municipal rent, the portable rent supplements by February, and that needed to be submitted a few weeks ago. So that kind of indicates it's a requirement that we'll get a decision quickly. Also, the application, the funding is eligible from January 1st to March 30th. So that also tells us we're going to get a decision very quickly.
Just to follow up, Chair, that's great news. Again, then I appreciate the province moving so quickly. Again, sometimes they don't. So I'm glad to hear that that will happen, and I look forward to the initiatives in regards to our community. And again, appreciate staff's constant communication with our staff in regards to that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fryer. Good comments there. Councillor Gordon, I believe you're next, and then I have Mayor McIsaac.
Thanks. It's great to see this report come through and sort of the quick pivot to address the call for applications, which I had never doubted. And his team would be all over this. Matter of fact, I think I emailed him when I got back from that announcement in Toronto saying, guess what's coming? So I can share some success stories that even prior to this announcement, Midland, which, we have the sort of unenviable number 3 position in Simcoe County for homeless population, second only to Orillia and Barrie. We were able to successfully clear out an encampment that was on private property with no media hubbub, no drama. It went as well as any of these could ever go. It was a multidisciplinary group approach between our bylaw department and the fire and the police and the county, of course, and Empower Simcoe and our shelter at Guest House. People got placed into hotels through the motel voucher program. Even folks with pets were managed, that's a really tough one to deal with. This thing went as well as it could. Now, it's small in scope compared to my neighbors, in Orillia and Barrie that have, encampments with hundreds of people experiencing homelessness. But a shout out to the county that this system works. We didn't need a stick approach. I welcome the stick approach from the province. Don't get me wrong. I was standing there on the stage and we signed that letter, but it just shows it's carrot and stick. And the carrot approach worked really, really well. And so I just wanted to shout out to the county's team for their support on this. I know they're continuing to work with the funding they had and the new funding they anticipate getting towards supportive housing. There's a big project, that it's a cloud of uncertainty whether it moves ahead or not. Unfortunately, Midland doesn't have a overnight warming facility just because there's no facility. Nobody was able to hold it or host it, so we're still hopeful, what's left of the winter. But the county's all over this, and the funding that comes in, and of course all the metrics that are being collected and are available on that open dashboard can show anybody who's interested and curious about just how dire the need is and how occupied our shelter spaces and things are. It's all there to be seen. So just echoing again, continued good work, continued appreciation. The hand's always out though, because there's always more to do. And I know that as soon as the good weather comes, our encampments will resume. I mean, not to say we don't have any now, but they're really hidden. So the ones that are more in your face are going to resume. And we're hoping that by then, some of the new initiatives from the province and the disincentives to issues that are not directly attributable to homelessness, like open drug use and panhandling and things that are downtown cores, but semi-connected, that there'll be some new ways to manage those that don't fall into the lap of the GM's team. Those are more for us to deal with as municipalities. So all in all, this is good news. Great to see the responsiveness by the team. The funding's going to good use. And of course, I'll continue to lobby on the Affordable Housing Committee and on this floor to, let's pay attention to the outliers, which are the big three that are experiencing the disproportionately the most homelessness pressures, of which my municipality is one. And let's just stay focused on trying to apply all the funding and measures and effort to those. And I really look forward to the Heart House model being approved for Barrie as phase one, and then the hub and spoke mentality, where we can see that extended into Aurelia, Midland, Collingwood, which clearly has a need because they've got the rapid rehousing there. There's a lot of work to be done, but this is just acknowledging the fact that the province and the premier was listening. And although not all parts of the announcement were well received by everybody, especially people that are, I won't call them bleeding hearts because I don't mean it to be a negative thing, but folks that, are just more predisposed to super caring rather than necessarily the finance and the other components that come with people experiencing homelessness. So trying to find that middle ground, I think, is what was done, and how it all works out in the court with some of these new court rulings remains to be seen. But again, it's carrot and stick, and we have carrot. We'll always go carrot first, but it's nice to know you got the stick if you needed it.
Good comments. Well put together. Thank you very much. Mayor McIsaac is next. Then I have Councillor Dolan, and then Prost, and then I see Follis again. Mayor McIsaac.
Thank you. Through the chair, certainly appreciate Mayor Nuttall's comments, and we really certainly agree to those. We appreciate Mayor Nuttall's leadership, certainly getting this initiated, as well as Mina's speed and agility in responding. Really is obviously a huge supporter of this. We've amped up our efforts on the warming center. We've partnered with the county, investing in transitional housing for youth, and we're contemplating in various ways rapid rehousing for more. This is obviously a huge issue for us, and as everyone said here, safety is paramount, and we look forward to future developments here. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Chair Dolan?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment a little more broadly on the provincial aspect of this, and that it isn't just a Simcoe County problem. It isn't just a big city problem. It's happening all over Ontario, particularly in Northern Ontario. There's a significant number of encampments and issues there. I think that this is a good step. I've been hearing horror stories for a number of years from other municipalities, Kingston, Mayor Patterson being one of them, where they finally had a very large encampment that they weren't allowed to take down. It was finally taken down due to the fact there was a double homicide at their park. So there are, while I appreciate this work, I see it as pulling people out downstream. And I think the really hard work is making sure people don't fall in upstream in the first place. And that's the type of work that both AMO and I know the big city mayors are working on as well. back in August, AMO and the big city mayors did a joint announcement on solvethecrisis.ca. If you haven't yet, I would suggest you have a look at that item that Marianne Mead Ward, the chair of OBCM, announced at the AMO conference in August. And also just last Thursday, I believe, AMO's paper on homelessness encampment came out, and it's an eyebrow raiser. To get the full scope of what's going on in the province and the investment required to solve the crisis, I think it's really worth taking a look at. Thank you.
Excellent. Good points. And thank you, actually, for highlighting, too, that the government and the lower tiers are working together on this to get, lockstep. Well done. I believe Councillor Prost, did you have a question or comment?
I do have some comments. I'm very happy with everything that the province and the county is doing regarding the encampments. I don't 100% agree with how they're being removed at this time. They need to have somewhere to go. And I can give you a real example. In December, when the encampment in Midland they were evicted, and everything did go smoothly. And I was keeping this private, but it went smoothly because I provided a place for the majority of these people to be safe, because they could not get into the motel service. They couldn't get into the shelter. I called 211 myself, and there was no other options. So, and I realize in saying this, of course, everything's not going to go smoothly in the beginning. I know that the county is working to make that happen, but it is not happening yet. And just sweeping out these encampments at this time until there is really somewhere for these people to go. And I can tell you, in December in Midland, there wasn't somewhere for all of them to go until I stepped in. And it's just very sad, and it's not a bleeding heart. People can't have nowhere to go. If they had have left and went to town property, the same thing would have happened. And all you're doing is, removing, displacing people that are already displaced, and keep doing it. I do know that these people are working with the county and working with the guest house and other agencies, and they're trying to move their way up. Not all people in encampments are drug users. They're not all bad people. And I'm not saying that that's what they're always being referred to, but that's what it comes down to when people talk about it. Because there are a lot of encampments that are really bad, and there's lots of drugs and needles, and there is issues, and I'm not saying there's not. And I'd like to see everybody housed one way or another and no encampments. So I support all of this, but I do want to say that there is still a lot of work to do. And Midland was a win-win, but not on its own. Thank you. Councillor
Prost, I just want to acknowledge your work that you did there, and thank you, and acknowledge your fine leadership. Good job. Councillor Follis, I believe you're up next.
Thanks. Through the chair, I just wanted to speak to this very briefly. I'm going to have to go. But just right off the cuff, there was mention of bleeding hearts. Certainly, I guess I would categorize myself in the sense that I really do believe that everyone is a human being and deserves to be treated as such, and we really shouldn't be criminalizing poverty. Certainly supportive of the resources going to things like transitional housing, to shelters, but certainly concerned around how what types of resources we're using to address encampments and how they're being removed. That needs to be done very sensitively and in collaboration with those that are working directly with this population. So I just wanted to express both the support for the resources going towards addressing housing, but also just a concern around how we're addressing the other side of things. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Follis. If there's nothing further, yes, Mayor Nuttall once again.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just want to pipe in. Most of the legislation that came forth from the province was not about private lands. because the focus of the judicial the decisions were around municipal properties, parks, forests, those types of things. Now, I think that there needs to be that separation made because for us in the city of Barrie, like Midland, when there's a private encampment or an encampment on private land, the owner of that land can request it be gone. And we've made with your team here at the county a priority on if that's happening, the county needs to have a few days to go in to offer services, to offer help, to offer support. Those things are already happening. They would have happened in Midland, as was brought forward by the mayor. They happen in Barrie. I'm sure they happen in Aurelia. It's in a very respectful and a very caring and compassionate way by the county and by the municipalities. And so I think that we need to be careful here how we are categorizing and creating divisions on this matter, specifically when what we're actually dealing with in the city of Barrie, I'm not sure about the others, I'm just speaking for the city of Barrie here, is where we own a lot of land. And all of a sudden that land gets turned into an encampment. It could be 2 on day 1, and then it's 10 tents by day 10, and it's 20 tents, and so on and so forth. And the courts have come down and decided you cannot remove those unless you have an adequate space for each person, an accessible space for each person. What this funding will do is allow the county of Simcoe to go in and make sure there is an adequate and accessible space for each one of those people. And that's the really good carrot part of it. And the stick part of it is if somebody says, you know what, I don't feel that that's accessible for myself, but it is, then the municipality can still move in and ask that person to move on and offer those services that are available. Because some folks do not want to go inside. Some folks do not want help. And that's just the reality. There's no quote unquote bleeding heart that can fix that matter. Or, I'm a bleeding heart on this issue. I want to see us provide the services. But there's nothing that I can do to force that person inside. What we can do is work with the County of Simcoe, provide the services, make sure the options are there, and do everything possible to do this in a humane and respectful manner.
Again, good comments. Thank you very much, Mayor Nettle. I don't see any other cards, and so I think we've had a really good discussion on this, and I think that it's quite an important point. Sadly, this will be something we're going to be dealing with more and more and more into the future, and I have a great faith in our team here at the county through the leadership of our general manager. So at this point, we do have a mover and seconder, so I am prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, moving on, section number 23. This is the long-term care management, and we do have a report from Health Force Ontario Staffing Initiatives. There's a recommendation here. I'll read it, and I'll look for a mover and seconder. That item number CCW 2025-011, dated January 14, 2024. It says 2024. Let's make that 25. Regarding Health Force Ontario Staffing Initiatives update be received. Mover and seconder, please. Where are we? Mr. Bell and Mr. Greenlaw, thank you very much. Any questions on this? Any comments? Looking around. Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Moving to 23.2. This is the base funding for behavioral supports, Ontario Services and long-term care. Very good report. I'll read the report or read the recommendation, look for a mover and seconder. That item CCW 2025-012, dated January 14, 2025, regarding the 24-25 base funding for behavioral supports, Ontario Services in long-term care be received, and that staff be authorized to fully utilize new base funding as generally outlined in item CCW 025012, including recruitment in an additional one full-time equivalent registered practical nurse to the geriatric mental health long-term care program. Can I ask Councillor Negussi to move that? Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cox, thank you. And General Manager Sinclair is available for questions and comments. Do you have any comments you'd like to bring forward, General Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment that we're so pleased to bring this information forward to Council. There is a substantive increase, over $300,000, just in our base funding for retention purposes to address cost of living increases over the last number of years. So we certainly appreciate that increase in funding. We've had ongoing discussions with Ontario Health and are very pleased with this base funding allotment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, GM. Is there any members with any questions? Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Where are we at? We're at 23.3. This is the Health and Emergency Services Performance Reporting Update. And the ask is that the item CCW 2025-015, dated January 14, 2025, regarding the Health and Emergency Services Division Performance Reporting Long-Term Care Balance Scorecard. That's a good long sentence. Be received. Okay. Is there a mover and seconder? Councillor Van Stavern, is there, where are we at? Mr. Norris, Councillor Norris. Thank you. Is there any questions on this item? Questions or comments? Looking around. Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor? That also carries. Thank you. 23.4 is our long-term care senior services accreditation. That item CCW 2025-028, dated January 14, 2025, long-term care and senior services accreditation Canada update be received. Mover and seconder, please. Where are we? Mr. Smith. And that would be Brian Smith. And seconder, looking from this house, where are we at? There, Mr. Lavoie. Nice to see you. Is there any questions on this this report? Yes, Councillor Cox.
Once again, I'd just like to thank the staff. They came through very quickly on any of the extra requirements that they hadn't got passed. And I just want to commend them, and I hope to pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because their jobs are hard jobs, and they do great work with our seniors. Thank you.
Absolutely correct. Any other comments or questions? All right. I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? That carries again. Thank you. Going to section 25, our emergency management. Let's see here. CCW 2025-016, renewal of the 911 primary public safety answering point agreement. There's a recommendation here that item CCW 2025-016, dated January 14, 2025, regarding renewal of the 911 primary public safety answering point agreement be received, and that the necessary bylaw be presented to authorize the warden and county clerk to renew the primary public safety answering point agreement with the Ontario Provincial Police. Mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Rawson, thank you. And I believe, GM Sinclair, you have someone who wants to speak to this. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a couple of very quick comments. First of all, we're very pleased to bring forward a renewal of this agreement. We've been in partnership for more than 2 decades. The OPP has maintained their rate at 0.56 for that same period of time, and so we're pleased to have this. There is some commentary contained within the report around the Next Generation 911 program. We are working closely with our partners. Hope to have more information near the end of the month. Bell has called a meeting in terms of an update on this process. So when we have more information, we'll bring that forward to County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, GM. Is there any questions to this? The warden. Yes, sir.
Maybe one, if you can clarify it for both myself, and I believe my Oromadani, Severn, and Romero, we use the Aurelia dispatch. Now, my understanding was all cell phones would still go to this, or do the cell phones now go to the local dispatch? Because it was easy when you had hard lines, you were in that catchment zone. So if somebody calls 911 in Romero or Severn, does it go to this dispatch first, and from there it's moved to the Aurelia dispatch, or does it go directly to the Aurelia dispatch?
Thank you for the question. Through Mr. Chair, I will direct this question to our emergency manager, Mr. Grant Durfee. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And through the chair, the cell phones, it would depend on where the tower is located. So if the tower was in the catchment area for Aurelia, you would go to Aurelia. If the tower was in the catchment area for, we use Communications Center North Bay, it would go to the OPP at North Bay. So it's where that cell tower you're pinging off of is located.
Makes sense. Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Bell.
Just one quick question I just thought of. Does a VPN change the being able to identify what tower it's pinged off? Like, are you still able to see that?
Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So if you're on like a VoIP phone system or VPN system, that does inhibit the ability for them to see where your location is. There are systems in place so when you set up a new VoIP or VPN phone line, or you can manually enter your address to your provider, and that can be relayed off to the dispatch center, but that is an extra step that has to happen with those VoIP or VPN systems.
Good information. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That also carries. Your Worship, this is the point where I get to ask this great question. Are there any other matters for consideration in Human Services? And seeing none, I get to pass the chair back to Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Measures. And now Chair Dolan for Corporate Services, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're at item 26. 26.1 is a notice of appeal, Town of Collingwood official plan. Anyone have any comments or questions they'd like to? Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. And not any questions. I just want to say to staff, we appreciate the cooperation they're having with our staff in regards to the appeals. And our staff highlighted to all of council at our last meeting and particularly pointed out that they're working very, very closely with the county staff to try to deal with these as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to convey our appreciation in that regard.
Thank you. So I'd ask for a mover then, Councillor Hamlin, and a seconder, Councillor Fryer, that item CCW 2025-013 dated January the 14th, 2025 regarding appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal regarding the Town of Collingwood official plan be received, and the staff and legal counsel be permitted to attend all necessary meetings, complete all required filings, and attend all proceedings regarding the appeal of the Town of Collingwood official plan appeal, and that County Director of Planning, Chief Planner, and or the county solicitor be authorized to sign any minutes of settlement on behalf of the county of Simcoe if required, where such settlement maintains the intent of applicable provincial, county, and town policies, bylaws, and standards. All those in favor of that recommendation? Any opposed? That is carried. Next, under engineering, item 27.1 is the Transportation Master Plan update from 2024 with progress and next steps. Comments or questions on the TMP? Seeing none, could I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Miskimings and Councillor Norris, that item CCW 2025-014 dated January the 14th, 2025 regarding Transportation Master Plan update, progress, and next steps be received, and that county staff initiate the process for updating the county official plan to incorporate recommendations from the Transportation Master Plan, and that staff pursue the implementation of the Transportation Master Plan update 2024 through future projects, partnerships, and annual capital budgets. All those in favor? Any opposed? One opposed? Seeing, okay, we have one opposed, and that is carried. And then I will also ask if there's any further matters for consideration. Seeing none, I'll pass it off to the warden.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. Chair Evans, Performance Management, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome, House, and Happy New Year to everybody, if I haven't had a chance to say hi to you. Moving on, performance management consent items. We have 10 on the docket today. So I'll open this up with anybody that'd like to have a discussion or amend any of the items, if you could call them out. Otherwise, we'll consider them as a whole. Councillor Van Staveren. Sorry, you might be on mute there, Councillor. Still on mute.
Get her working. There we go.
Thank you.
There you
sorry
go.
about that. My apologies. Item 29.7.
You'd like to discuss or amend?
I'd just like to comment on it.
Okay, that's fine.
We had the opportunity to do a flag raising yesterday, and we had the opportunity to meet with the people from Crime Stoppers. It's a very well letter, very appropriate at this time. They're struggling with their finances, and in times of, we'll say, tough economic conditions, every community needs to look out at the support that can be given to the Crime Stoppers facility. And we were very receptive in speaking with the OPP and speaking with Crime Stoppers members. So I hope any other community that has the opportunity to receive them is receptive to what their asks are right now. And we are definitely in Clearview looking at that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to speak to what my colleague just brought up about 29.7, 29.8, to see if possibly we could get a staff report come back at a subsequent meeting to see how the County of Simcoe could support Crime Stoppers on behalf of the 16 lower tier municipalities, because they do tremendous work, and I think we all benefit by supporting a great outfit like this.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Appreciate that. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon? Thank you. Okay. We'll pull that one out, and unless there's any other items for discussion, Councillor Miskimins.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just want to echo what Councillor Van Staveren said. We in Tiny also had the opportunity last week to do a flag raising with the Crime Stoppers group and listen to some of the stats that they provide. And I think in the times that we're in now, more than ever, we need all eyes and ears on the ground to prevent crime where we can. And they've got an amazing program that keeps it completely anonymous for any tips. Many people may not, and this is more for the public's awareness. If you do provide a tip, you are given a special number code. And if your tip is successful, you can go into any TD bank, I believe, in the county, and claim your reward anonymously. So the program works effectively and does a great job of reducing crime within our communities.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Miskimins. Councillor Brian Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to echo again what everyone else has said. And I can tell you that for the community of Wasaga Beach, we'll be doing our flag raising coming up. And I've had many discussions with many members at Crime Stoppers in Wasaga Beach within our community. It's been a great organization. It's a great organization on a whole. And has done a lot of great work throughout the county and throughout the province, for that matter, if not further and beyond. And it would be a shame to see organizations like this fall by the wayside. And so I would encourage the county and each municipality where you can to do what you can to help them carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, in full agreement. Okay, to start off with, we'll pull a motion or propose a motion to deal with consent items, save for item 29.7. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Walker, thank you, moving, and Councillor Norris, seconding. Thank you very much. Councillor Dolan.
Friendly amendment, if I could we include 29.7 and 29.8 in there as well, which is the letter right from Crime Stoppers?
Councillor Rawson, is this something you're amenable to? I see a yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Councillor Gordon?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll amend the amendment. So we have a mover and a seconder for the consent items to be received as information, save for 29.7 and 29.8. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, we'll deal with the amended motion now. To receive items 29.7, 29.8 to be directed to staff for further examination. We have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Miskimins.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
You have Ross and Councillor Gordon would second it. That the letters be referred to staff for a report back.
Okay.
You already had a mover and seconder, but to the members, the motion essentially would just be to, push the request outlined in the letters to staff for a report back.
Okay, fair enough. We'll do Councillor Rawson as the mover and Councillor Gordon as the seconder then. Any further discussion? Fully in support of this. Obviously, Councillor Miskimins mentioned that they were in Tiny last week. Just give you a couple of just a little top shots in 2024 in Simcoe, Dufferin, and Muskoka. There was 1,789 tips received. And from those tips, there were 82 arrests made. The ask that will be under discussion is approximately $10,000. So in terms of a dollars per tip received, it's $5.59. And in terms of an arrest, it's $121. So those of you that are in law enforcement, prior careers, I think we'll see that that's a pretty reasonable number and probably a little less than what would be spent, and obviously a very worthwhile program for our community. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor? Sorry. Councillor Gordon, do you have something before we go to motion?
Well, it's just effectively the endorsement. This program, I know in my law enforcement career, was invaluable for solving crime in the Southern Georgian area. The tip may have originated in Midland or one of our neighboring municipalities, but the crime may have been happening in Midland or one of our neighboring municipalities. Same rings true when you look at the stats for the number of tips relating to crime in Barrie, Aurelia, and even the small areas. Crime is borderless. So I think keeping this organization afloat is incumbent upon each of our municipalities, but rather than having to rely on the whims of municipalities and the ebb and tide of decision-making at our 16 municipalities, it might make sense to bring this to the county level and just build this into our budget as something we support. Right now, we're exploring the option of a county-wide police service. I think that's a report that's coming back at some point. It's going to be a beast. But normally we don't get into the funding of law enforcement. But this isn't really law enforcement, it's a community safety initiative. So what my ask would be is this report outlines not only what we would be asking the county to build into its base budget year after year, but also a commitment from our two neighbors in Simcoe, Dufferin and Muskoka Crime Stoppers, that they would equally contribute on some formula that we agree on, whether it's population or voter, something. And that would be just something we'd all agree on and we baked into our base budget. So this organization has some sustainability they can count on rather than, again, the ebb and flow of every individual municipality. The expectation is they would continue to fundraise for the tips that they give out because that's what they do right now. But the core operational funding that keeps the organization afloat and the phones being answered and the email tips coming in, that would be sustained through the three partners and the beneficiaries. So just for scope, asking for a letter or a report from staff, that would be my hope and expectation of what we would explore. And then our support would be contingent on our two partners agreeing. Sounds like we've already got that support up in Muskoka, and we just need to get that from Dufferin. I don't know why they wouldn't with the other two of us in there, but I think it's a unified approach that just makes sense and takes it out of the minutia of the grant asks that we all have to deal with at our own municipality every year.
Good comments. Certainly we'll keep those and staff can include those. Just one addendum really though, that in the letter that we received from Muskoka, it names a fourth partner, that being the city of Barrie as a participant as well. So we'll just make sure that we clarify that in terms of who's going to be participating and to what degree, but good comments. Okay, good. Mr. Clerk, are we all good on that? Okay, good. Thank you, Council. Moving on. Yeah, we have to call the vote, I guess, so that'll be a good idea. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Sorry, just scrolling through here. Scroll down too far. Okay, moving on, item CCW 2025-003, Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology, aka SWIFT, Board of Directors nominations for 2025-2027. Should be straightforward. The motion being that Deputy Warden Jennifer Coughlin be nominated for appointment to the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology SWIF Board of Directors for the 2025 to 2027 term. Can I have a mover and a seconder for discussion? Councillor Walker, Councillor McClellan, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, or Deputy Warden. Thank you for participating. Moving on to item 31.1, CCW 2022-030, which is a 2025 borrowing bylaw, standard item every year. The motion is that item CCW 2025-030 dated January 14th, 2025, regarding the 2025 borrowing bylaw be received, and that the necessary bylaw be presented to County Council substantially in the form attached as Schedule 1 of item CCW 2025-030 to allow the county to borrow temporarily on its line of credit as may be necessary during the year to meet its current payment obligations. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Measures moving. Councillor Lavoie for seconding. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this item? Any questions, comments? I think we all go through this on a lower tier level every year. So good. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Performance management of fleet and property. We have an emergency item that came up, item CCW 2025-006, solid waste management loader emergency replacement. Motion is that item CCW 2025-006 dated January 14th, 2025 regarding solid waste management loader emergency replacement be received, and that the required $470,000 for the purchase of a replacement loader be approved, and that funds be provided from the insurance proceeds and solid waste management reserve as outlined in this item, and that staff proceed with purchasing a replacement loader as generally outlined in item CCW 2025-006. Mover and seconder for discussion, Councillor Norris, seconding Councillor Bell. Thank you very much. Any comments on this item? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to item 33, which is any other items under performance management that you'd be like for consideration? Seeing none at this time, Your Worship, I pass it back to you.
Thank you, Chair Evans. Everybody's read the reports. Is there any councillor needs to go in camera to discuss them further? I am not seeing any. I'll take my time on that. So with that, then I've got some motions that direction 34.1, the direction in camera and recommendations contained within confidential item CCW 2025-007 dated January 14th, 2025 regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land be approved and voted upon in accordance with section 239(6)(b) of the Municipal Act. Moved by Councillor Walker, second by Councillor Fryer. All in favor? That is carried. Opposed of any? Not seeing any. Okay. And next, that the in-camera and the direction in camera and recommendations contained within confidential item CCW 2025-027 dated January 14, 2025 regarding labor relations or employee negotiations be voted upon and approved in accordance with section 239(6)(b) of the Municipal Act. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Norris. All in favor? Opposed of any? That is carried. Thank you. None opposed. So now that I need a motion that Committee of the Whole rise and report to Council and resume sitting as County Council at 12:19. Moved by Councillor Miskman, second by Councillor Bell. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I'm going to keep going if everybody's okay with that. Do I see anybody that needs a break? Not. We're in the home stretch here. So we will now go back to the Committee of the Whole reports. Chair Evans.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moving on to item 36.1, Committee of the Whole report for performance management for January 14th, 2025. Motion being that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated January 14th, 2025 be approved, including the confidential item. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Warden Coughlin. Thank you.
Okay.
Any discussion on this?
Any items to be pulled?
Any items to be pulled?
Not seen. So, sorry, I call the vote, sir.
Yep,
all in favor? Opposed of any? That is carried. Next, Chair Measures.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Item 36-2, our Committee of the Whole report for Human Services. That Human Services recommends that the Human Services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated January 14, 2025 be approved. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brian Smith.
Everybody's heard the motion. Any items to be pulled? Not seeing any, so all in favor? Opposed of any? That is carried. And now Chair Dolan, please.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miskamings that the corporate services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated January the 14th, 2025 be approved, including the confidential item.
Everybody's heard the motion. Any to be pulled? Not seeing any, so all in favor? And opposed if any? I'm seeing none opposed, so thank you. So consideration of bills, Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Burkett, that bills number 710625 and 701725 be enacted as bylaws of the County of Simcoe.
On the bills, any questions? All in favor? Opposed of any? And that is carried. Thank you. So now we're on to announcements. I'll start out just a reminder that the election for chairs and vice chairs of all the committees, subcommittees, and the Lake Simcoe Regional Board will take place. Lake Simcoe Regional Airport Board will take place at the first meeting of the year as per the terms of reference, as they are in all the committees yearly. Also, just a reminder that economic development will immediately follow the county council here for those members that are on that board. And can you please check your emails? We have a couple events coming up. I know Thursday we have an announcement at Georgian College, and then the following Thursday we have one at Lakehead. So if you could check your invites and try and make it to any of those events, you can. Any other announcements, Councillor Dolan?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I was very saddened to hear of the passing of Rick Jones from Jones Consulting, the founder of Jones Consulting Group. Any of you who've been around for a while will know that Rick, for a large part, although mostly in the city of Barrie, for a large part, had a lot to do with the planning in Simcoe County, and he passed away quite early due to complications due to cancer. And my condolences to Cheryl and his two girls. And also there will be a celebration of life at Steckley Gooderham on, I believe, Sunday the 23rd, I want to say, at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Check the date if you're going. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Councillor Brian Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just announced that on February the 7th at 6 p.m. the doors will open for a concert at our new arena in Wasaga Beach. The opening act at 7:45 will be the Rivertown Saints, opening for our Juno Award-winning headliner Tim Hicks. And so anyone who wants to see some good country entertainment, come on out to Wasaga Beach on February the 7th, and we'd be happy to host you there.
Now I can say you're playing my tune. Are there any other announcements? Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Word, and through you, just to add to Councillor Smith's announcement, the following evening as well, February 8th, Sam Roberts' band will also be playing. So there's a couple of different genre options for folks looking for some live entertainment. Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting some nods around the room. I'm not seeing any other announcements, so then I would look for the confirmatory bylaw, Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. That bill number 710825 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Burkett, please.
On that bylaw, you've all heard it. All in favor? That is carried. And lastly, that the January 14th, 2025 meeting of council be adjourned at 12:25 p.m. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Norris. All in favor? That is carried. And thank you to the clerks. I would say our first hybrid meeting went off with a success. Didn't see any glitches. It actually works very well. So everybody at home, we'll see you next time.